If everyone can please be seated. Good evening, Coatesville Area School District. I'd like to call to order the Coatesville Area School District February 23rd, 2022 school board meeting. First order of business is a reading of the mission statement. The mission of the Coatesville Area School District, rich in diversity and committed to excellence, is to create innovative educational experiences which are funded by the taxpayers, supported by the community, delivered by dedicated teachers and administrators to ensure all students will become responsible, contributing global citizens. Agenda item 1C, advisement. By notice of the President, board members are advised that all votes shall be regarded as roll call votes. The minute should also note that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 93 of 1998, Section 1. School board meetings shall proceed in accordance with school board policy. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Arvell Brown.
Here.
Holly Charest.
Here.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Here.
Becky Harlan.
Here.
Mary Ann Harris.
Tech team, can you unmute Ms. Harris, please?
Mary Ann Harris.
Ms. Harris, can you hear us? Madam Secretary, if we can move on while we work on the technical issues, please.
Sure. Amelia Mills.
Here.
Jennifer Schott.
Here.
Allison Shriver.
Here.
Rob Fisher.
Madam Secretary, let it be noted that Mr. Fisher requested an absence tonight.
Brandon Roan.
And also ditto for that for Mr. Run. At this time, I'll ask that we all please take a moment of silence and rise for the salute of the flag. Color guard, present colors. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Moving on to agenda item number 2, additions, deletions, or modifications. To my colleagues, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, move on to the approval. Actually, we're going to shift things tonight. I apologize. We do have some young visitors here tonight. So given the time of night at 7, about 10 after 7, we're going to give them an opportunity. So Mr. Hanna, I'm going to head and turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd love to welcome our young stars, our young scholars from the Rainbow Elementary School. Ms. Stauffer, please come on up. We give them a round of applause before they get rolling.
No sound.
The mission of Rainbow Elementary School is to provide every student with the ability to reach his or her potential academically, socially, and emotionally. While focusing on academics, we also seek to foster the development of soft skills. Soft skills are the most valuable skills you can develop, and the Rainbow Student Council, known as the Rainbow Reps, gives students the opportunity to foster skills like leadership, communication, teamwork, organization, and public speaking, all of which you need in life.
Tonight, Mrs. Stauffer and I are recognizing select 5th grade students' participation in Rainbow Reps with Rainbow Rep Advisor Mrs. Kathy Elliker for organizing and carrying out school activities and service projects to foster leadership skills and to grow ownership and participation of our school community. These leaders were chosen through an application and screening process and embody the tenets of our Wildcat Code of respectful, responsible, and safe.
At this time, I would like to turn your attention to a brief video presentation all about our Rainbow Reps.
Hi, my name is Kathy Elliker. I am a teacher here at Rainbow Elementary, and I've been a teacher here since 2003 in the district. Almost all of those years have been at Rainbow, and since I came over to Rainbow, I have been the coordinator for the Student Council, also known as Rainbow Reps. These students are an integral part of what goes on here at Rainbow, and they help students and parents and the community, and I'm excited to let them tell you all about what they do.
What is a Rainbow Rep?
A Rainbow Rep is a student council who helps with activities and represents the younger kids.
A Rainbow Rep helps
out with
the
like
PTO
PTO
school
events,
like school
store,
store,
holiday
holiday shop,
shop,
and haunted hallways and field day,
and
and the 5th grade dance and picnic.
How do you become a Rainbow Rep?
You have to do a campaign, then you gotta make a poster, then you gotta give out a speech.
And then you have to be elected by your classmates to represent them.
Why does the school need Rainbow Reps?
Rainbow Reps will help out with various needs around the school and represent what the students want.
How do students in younger grades feel about Rainbow Reps?
They feel good because we help them.
We are role models.
What's the best thing about being a Rainbow Rep?
Get to play and stuff.
And you get to help out with various opportunities in the school.
What do you like best about being a Rainbow Rep?
Helping teachers by delivering things and helping younger kids.
What about you?
As a Rainbow Rep, I help kids with candy grams. I help them fill them out and I deliver them.
think you want to run for student council next year in 6th grade?
Rainbow reps are the best around. At Rainbow School, we can be down. We are here to help. We are here to share. Rainbow reps really care.
As you can see, they brighten our hearts and make us smile every day based on that video. At this time, Mr. Myers and I, along with Mrs. Elliker, would like to introduce and recognize our Rainbow Reps. Students, when we announce your name, please head over to Mrs. Elliker and Mr. Myers and remain standing in front of this stage because it's a great opportunity for pictures. At this time, we are honored to recognize Layla Abernethy, Naomi Botchway, Nadira Bryant, Lily Butler, Rowan Campbell, Amelia Sharist, Joshua Cucci, Peyton Daly, Cameron Gardner,
Look at her shoes.
Verity Hopkins, Chance Kipp, Stanley Mahowski, we are packing the stage here. You guys need to move down a little bit. Adarius Moyer, Chloe Persh, Isaiah Rivera Stringer, Landon Steyer, and Naziah Trice and Camilla Aguilar, who were unable to be with us tonight. Could you please give our Rainbow Reps a big round? And Mr. Hanna is awarding them with Rainbow's Classroom Cash, which is one of our PBIS initiatives, so hopefully you'll work your way to a goal. Mr. Myers, I also have something for Mrs. Elliker because we would be remiss if we did not recognize the effort that she puts into our Rainbow Reps. So, Mrs. Elliker, hopefully you're better with plants than I am, and this is just something for you to thank you for helping our students grow. And my Rainbow Reps, my Wildcats. So before we came in here, I asked you to find my name on the wall outside. Did you find it? Yes. Class of 1994, and I am a proud graduate of the Coatesville Area Senior High School. So I want to share with you that as a student all throughout my career at Coatesville, I participated in student council. It is my hope, just like in this video, that you continue your participation in leadership activities throughout your educational career in the Coatesville Area School District. We are lucky to have you.
Rainbow Reps, you're free to go and take them home so they can get to bed and be ready to learn tomorrow.
Next up on the agenda is 3A, approval of the minutes. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the minutes from the January 25th, 2022 school board meeting, subject to any additions, deletions, modifications, or clarifications. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Madam Secretary, we'll call for a vote.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Becky Harlan, Holly Charette,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris, Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Harvell Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter 3B, approval of the minutes. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the minutes from the February 8th, 2022 special board meeting, subject to any additions, deletions, modifications, or clarifications. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
And Madam Secretary, can we call for a vote?
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Holly Charette.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next up, we have public comment on agenda items. The public comment first half of the meeting is on agenda items only. The board has requested that anyone who wishes to make a public comment, please list their name, address, telephone number, and topic on the sheet provided. There's a 3-minute time limit per person. We understand that parents and community members are here to address important issues. We will carefully listen, and we will value and appreciate your input. It is our practice to generally not respond to public comments, as this is an official business meeting and not a town hall in which we are dialoguing with the community. We do not want any member of the public to to interpret this as a disinterest. As a board, we are very much invested in the welfare of our students and school district, and we're working for the collective success of the district. All right, so it looks like the first person we have, Amanda Buchanan Winky. It looks like that is a non-agenda item, so we're gonna, if that's okay, we're gonna move you to the second half of the meeting. The first part of the public comment is for agenda items only. So we haven't forgotten about you. We're gonna shift you to the second part of the public comment. First up is Audrey Ritter.
Good evening. I'm Audrey Ritter, the president of the Coatesville Area Teachers Association, and tonight I stand before you to talk about change. We use change a lot in this district, and we've changed a lot in this district. But there are some things that seem to never change in this district. Over the past decade, we have cut some programs, we've increased class sizes, we've changed building configurations. The list can go on and on. But there are two things we need to know. Number one, we've tried these all before, and again, and none of them have been beneficial to our educational program or our financial situation. We cannot fix our academic shortcomings if we don't fix our financial ones. Yet, we keep doing the same things and keep expecting a different outcome. On the agenda tonight, you have the suspension memo that has to be done, and that, for the public's knowledge, is where we furlough staff. We don't have enough staff. If that wasn't evident last Thursday, I don't know when it'll ever be evident again. Our teachers have taken 5 years of pay freezes. We have furloughed 144 teachers in the past 10 years. That does not count teachers who have resigned or retired. We've always been asked, think about the budget. You as teachers have to think about the financial state of the district. And we have been accommodating. We've taken less pay, we've taken more in benefits, we've taken on more duties, yet we're still in this financial point every year. We're always 13 million or so in debt. It's not helping. So we need to do something different. So I stand before you to give you some suggestions. Number one, we got to change the mindset in our district. We still have an atmosphere of intimidation. We are all professionals and should be treated as such. It is never acceptable to publicly reprimand a professional or to personally attack a professional in any way. Two, Consequences are a natural part of life. We need to give consequences consistently. As we've said for years, suspension's not the answer, but we don't provide any alternatives. I asked this very question at a liaison meeting, and the only alternative that came up was suggested by CADA. Let's implement that. 3, how about we follow the contracts? They are legally binding documents. By following them, we save money in grievances and lawyer fees. More importantly, you show the staff who stay that you respect their agreement and that you will honor what they have agreed to. 4, we actually can work together. It's possible. Nobody's going to burn or turn to stone if they take a suggestion from CADA. In fact, even if you let CADA take the lead on something, we might actually grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ritter. Kathy Elliker? Okay. Double booking, huh? All right. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. So I have a couple of questions about the finances. This is some information that President Fisher submitted to the public on September the 28th regarding Collegium, who we owed $3.7 million above and beyond what was already paid, and Avongrove, we owed $800 million above and beyond what we paid for the 2020-21 school year. My question is, can the public get an update on the status of that court proceeding? Because according to the memo from Mr. President Fisher, this was not proper. According to his memo, he says Collegium's withholding request was improper as a matter of law, and he said it's the same. So I'd like to know the status of that. I believe the hearing was the end of January, or should have been the end of January. My next question has to do with the $24,000, and maybe the amount is not on there, but we have, we're paying this company out of King of Prussia for appraisals of property. I'm not finding out on my notes here, but it is on, okay, it's on the financial statements. It's Wolf. There's a Wolf and Company, but anyway, my question is, why are we paying those people so much money? Thank you. If we're thinking about selling our property, do we really need to be paying this kind of money for consultants and appraisers? And we know we have empty buildings that we may benefit from if we put them on the market. So I'd like to know this, I'd like some information about that. I think I said this at the last meeting. When Kathy Tachner was here, she did consistently put the full contract, maybe not consistently, but she put the entire contract in the minutes, and we were able to get that information. I asked a lot of questions the last time about the special education audit. I do know that it was the week of the 19th, and I had posted some information, so I have the information that I was asking you all to put on the website, which was the audit that was in December of 2019. I still think you should put that information on the website. And I still think, and I would ask you to indicate those number of schools in the district that are on the 3-year improvement plan so that the public is aware of where we stand in terms of special education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. And Ms. Differ, I believe I can give you an answer to one of your questions, Ms. Shannon Bailey. In regards to the contractor that's being used for appraisals, is that the appraiser that we're using in accordance with our master facilities plan evaluation for facilities and assets?
What we're actually paying now is for the district-initiated tax appeal. So that's the services that they do for us, which is board-approved every year for them to actually go out and do those services.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Looks like next up we have Amanda Petraka It looks like that's safety at the intermediate high school, so that would be a non-agenda item. So that would shift to the second half of the meeting. We won't forget about you. We will come back. And it looks like the same thing for Walter Parker. That will be a second half of the agenda item. So it looks like that's it for the series of public comment. And next up, we have number 5A, executive session. An executive session was held on February 7, 2022, and February 22nd, 2022, for legal and personnel reasons. Next up, we have our student representatives report, and it looks like, Allison, you're by yourself tonight, so you're pulling double duty.
It's all good. Good evening. My name is Allison Shivert, and I'm the junior class student representative. I'd like to start my report by telling you about some of the highlights of our winter sports season. Congratulations to Danae Elsie, who ended her girls' basketball career with over 1,000 points. She reached this milestone on Monday, February 7th, at her senior night game versus Avangove. Congratulations. All of our winter sports teams had a great season and are wrapping up competition with their championship meets/games. Congratulations to the members of the indoor track team who will compete in the state championships at Penn State this weekend. Lorelei Eberly, Isaiah Brightman, LeBron Bessick, Drew Dermott, and Dave Kelly will all be representing our school district this weekend. Our Red Raider wrestling team will be competing this Saturday at the PIAA District 1 Wrestling Championships. Good luck to all of our wrestlers. Congratulations to sophomore swimmer Macy Speakman for qualifying for the District 1 meet, the only swimmer from Coatesville who did this, as a 19th seed in the 100 breaststroke and an alternate in the 200 free. Good luck, Macy. Congratulations to all of our winter sports athletes who worked hard this season, and thank you for all of the memories you provided us. All of our athletes and all of our students who participate in extracurricular activities will have the opportunity to participate in introductory training on leadership next Thursday, March 3rd. All students and their families in grades 6 through 12 should plan to attend, as well as their club advisors and coaches. A special thank you to community members Josh Kranz and Dwayne Walton, who will be providing our students this opportunity. It is crazy to think our winter sports season is ending, but we are excited for the start of the spring season on March 7th. Other things happening on campus right now include our drama club's production of Peter Pan this Friday and Saturday here in the Cash Auditorium at 7 p.m. Tickets are $5 at the door. Congratulations to the robotics team who will compete in the state championship on March 12th. Best of luck in your upcoming competition. We know you'll do great. Student council and class cabinets are hard at work planning junior and senior prom, which are coming up soon. Yearbook Club is working hard to create a great yearbook to give out to students. As mid-marks of the third marking period approach this Friday, students are looking forward to the end of the year and all the fun that it brings. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Allison. As always, very informative. Next up, we have our superintendent's report. Mr. Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Finkbeiner. Thank you, Allison. Appreciate that. Good evening to our community, faculty and staff, and board of directors. This evening, I will address the recent incident at Cash, our health and safety plan, and a preview of the presentations for this evening. First, let's once again, they're not here, but let's once again acknowledge the young people from Rainbow for their participation this evening. I know we have a very proud board member up here. So last Thursday, a number of parents came onto campus of the Coatesville Area Senior High School and initiated a fight with students. We have communicated with our school community about the details surrounding this extremely unfortunate and upsetting incident. 5 students were injured, though none seriously, and 1 adult is facing numerous charges, including charges associated with bringing a knife onto school property, specifically in the student parking lot. This kind of behavior simply will not be tolerated. We have worked with local law enforcement, our school district law enforcement, and the Chester County District Attorney's Office to ensure there's accountability for those involved. And while we do not absolve our students of their role in this fight, we want to make it abundantly clear this fight was instigated by adults. It's adults getting into student issues. Our goal is to provide the most positive, safe learning environments possible. We will not allow incidents like this to detract from that mission. We have taken several measures to increase safety at Coatesville Area Senior High School and at the Intermediate High School this year. The board has approved the hiring of additional staff who will support us in supervising students, such as climate coaches, school police officers who we're still have posted for those positions, and a family liaison who started with us in December. Our district chief of police has a stronger presence on campus. Additional administrators have been present at the campus. Climate coaches are following up with students who are struggling by providing conflict resolution and de-escalation skills to encourage nonviolent ways to address conflicts. We have instituted new parking procedures to better secure our student parking area. Positive behavior supports are in place to encourage good behavior, and there are hall monitors who are present to assist in keeping students in class and not wandering through the halls. I want to thank our staff for doing those roles. We are continuing to enforce our student code of conduct and discipline students in accordance with our policies. And to this end, there have been over 30 student adjudications to date this year. While we're not proud of that, that is part of our student code of conduct. And we acknowledge that this has been a very challenging year for students, staff, and families. Overwhelmingly, the conflicts that occur in our schools begin outside of our schools, then come into our buildings. There's some that start in school and leave our buildings. We need the support of our students, our parents, our school community to help address these issues, both here in the building and at home, and send a message that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated on school property. We've been accused of turning a deaf ear to these challenges. Nothing could be further from the truth. We're addressing these issues head-on, and in community partnership with organizations like the Lincoln Center and others in our community who want to be part of the solution. Creating positive, safe school environments is always our priority, and two initiatives we're excited to implement are the Superintendent's Advisory Group for the community, which seeks to engage the community in a positive and proactive dialogue, and Dads on Duty. It's a program out of Louisiana, but there are many programs like it across the country, and actually we used to run programs like that here in the district. This is an effort to have broader community presence in our schools. And the goal of both, one of the goals of each, is to support positive climate and culture in our schools. An example of this was yesterday. When we returned to Cash, we were pleased to welcome Mr. Josh Kranz and Mr. Rob Marshall during morning admission. It was clear that our students knew them based on their presence and leadership in our community. And I welcome building upon this concept to encourage strong relationships with our student and staff. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Mr. Kranz and Mr. Marshall for not only being with us on yesterday as students came back, but over the weekend as we sort of were working through how we were going to return. So I thank them for that participation. Now let's be clear. Overwhelmingly, the vast majority of our students choose to do the right thing every day, every period, in support of great education. Our educators come to school every day eager to engage our students. We will not allow incidents like this to define us, and we will face them head on. A key part of the solution will be to engage students and staff in meaningful dialogue. We've talked about PACT 19320, and that's an initiative that will help enable us to convene students for this purpose, to engage them in a conversation and action. And the Superintendent Advisory Group for staff held last week was critical in receiving feedback from our staff on what has worked and what challenges exist. And some of them who are here tonight were on that Zoom, and one of the issues that was raised was discipline and accountability, which I also heard just now. We're very grateful to all of those in the community who are working to support our school district in a variety of ways. We will continue to share with you the ways in which we are working to provide a great educational experience to our students, and I know this evening we'll hear from some of you and your concerns, and we look forward to engaging you in that conversation. With regard to our health and safety plan, we are reviewing the recently approved health and safety plan that the board approved last time we were together, given the continued drop in cases and the reduction of infections. Specifically, in Chester County, the 7-day incidence rate that was published on Friday was 158 out of 100,000. The week prior was 157 out of 100,000, and the percent positivity rate was 7%. Previously to that, it was 10%. In our district, the test count was 67 last Friday compared to 85 the week before, and the 7-day incidence in the Coatesville Area School District was 102 compared to 129 the week before. And while the rates have been reduced, our current plan remains in effect. We are still masking. When reviewing the thresholds, and we've given you thresholds to look at from the last time we approved the health and safety plan, you may notice the two numbers. The 7-day percent positivity rate, you may notice, is lower than the incident rate, than the 7-day incident rate. It's important to be reminded that it is the higher rate that determines the transmission level for moderate, substantial, or high. And I'll give you an example. Today, the percent positivity rate is in the moderate range. It's at 6.9%. The incident rate, however, per 100,000 is at 130.5. So we remain in the high range, even though one of the numbers, the percent positivity rate, is in the moderate range, we're still in high. Now, to be in low, both the percentage of positivity and the incident rate must be in low. And as I said earlier, our rates are very low. We have had 4 cases reported in the past 14 days and only 1 case this past week in all of our buildings. So we see where the trend is heading, but we want to be sure it's going to stay. So as we considered revising our plan, we reflected on key factors and considerations which we've talked about before. Eliminated contact tracing in schools. Vaccines are now available, and we continue to partner with pharmacies to continue to provide vaccine clinics. Other districts have moved to less restrictive mask policies. The state mandate for masks ended in December. There has been a dramatic drop in hospitalizations. As I mentioned earlier, our rates in the district are much lower. The Chester County Health Department has moved into a consultation role as opposed to a guidance role. Our commitment is to continue to monitor community rates of transmission. We will continue to partner with the Chester County Health Department for testing purposes. Masks will continue to be provided. And we mentioned Transcend, which is a third-party contractor that's helped us in our cleaning efforts, and we're going to continue working with them through the end of the year. And the CDC recently adjusted their recommendation for masking to their language to encouraged. So as a result, the administration is recommending to the board, we will recommend for vote at the end of the March meeting, and hold on before we finish, to ratify the following recommendation. That beginning on Monday, March 7th, the Coatesville Area School District will move to masks or face coverings recommended for staff, students, and visitors, but not required. So the next steps will be to communicate that. Now, here's what we'll share. I said 2 things that may sound a little off. We're going to ask the board to ratify this, which means after the fact, right? And we're going to ask that we begin this on March 7th, right? That's 2 weeks. That's going to give us a sense of where the numbers look. So hopefully we're under the 100, right, under the 50, and so that we can be very confident in terms of this recommendation. The board at our last meeting gave the administration the ability, the flexibility to make the moves between votes in the event that we needed to change something because of, change our practice because of what the numbers and the trends were looking like. So this is the recommendation I'm making to the board so that we can engage in this process and begin to communicate with our families so that they're aware of what this situation would be. So the next steps would be to communicate the revision to families and students. Presentations tonight. This evening, my colleagues, Ms. Brenda George, Director of Pupil Services, and Mr. Jason Pelaya, Director of Educational Services, and his team will provide updates to the community about our important work in their departments. I look forward to hearing their updates, these updates, and I hope you do too. Mr. President, that concludes my presentation for this evening, my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. We'll move right into the Pupil Services update.
I want to introduce Brenda George, our Director of Pupil Services, and Don Corey, who's a Director at the Chester County Juvenile Probation Office. Mr. Corey, thank you for joining us this evening. Ms. George, thank you for preparation.
Good evening. I'd like to take a few minutes just to talk about student discipline in the district. Within the presentation, this is kind of a high-level overview. I've included supports for students. I've included terminology, specifically the word adjudication and what it means in the school system. We are looking at culture and climate. We are looking at trauma, and then I will introduce Mr. Corey to come over and talk about community partnerships.
Your microphone seems low, Ms. George. I don't know that everybody can hear you. Try again.
good? Okay. So student discipline begins with the student code of conduct. School districts are required to develop and publish a code of student conduct, and copies must be made available to students and their families. Rules must be reasonably clear so that students know what is expected of them. Schools can impose consequences if students break rules listed in the student code of conduct. School rules cover behavior while at school, on the way to and from school, and during school functions and activities. Schools provide multiple opportunities for families to learn about the student code of conduct and behavioral expectations. They're sent out to parents via school messenger to all families at the beginning of the school year, included in weekly Monday morning minutes. The code is handed to new students if they enroll in the district after the beginning of the school year. The student code of conduct is provided to parents when requested. The student code of conduct can be accessed on school web pages, and the student code of conduct is also on student Chromebooks. Schools provide multiple opportunities for students to learn about the student code of conduct and behavioral expectations. Beginning of the year in school-wide assemblies, students begin to learn about the student code of conduct. The code of conduct is reviewed after breaks. Behavioral expectations included in the morning announcements. They're taught through PBIS and targeted lessons, and the student code of conduct is referred to at all disciplinary meetings, and it's also on the student Chromebooks. So in-school suspensions. Before discipline can be imposed, students must be informed for the reason of the discipline and given a chance to tell his or her side of the story. Parents must also be notified. If the in-school suspension is for more than 10 days in a row, the student must be offered an informal hearing. Out-of-school suspensions. Before out-of-school suspension can be assigned for violation of school rules, the student must be informed of the reason for such suspension and given a chance to respond. Parents must be notified in writing. An out-of-school suspension can last only up to 10 days in a row, 10 school days. Only the principal or the person in charge of the school, such as an assistant principal, can suspend a student. Informal hearings. An informal hearing allows the student to meet school officials to explain the circumstances surrounding the event related to the suspension. The informal hearing is held to bring forth all relevant information and for parents and guardians and school officials to discuss ways by which future offenses might be avoided. Parents must be invited to attend. Even if parents do not attend, the student may return to school if no further action is warranted, or the case will proceed to a formal board hearing, which must occur either on or before the 10th consecutive day of suspension. Students must be permitted to complete any assignments that were missed while he or she was suspended. Informal hearing requirements. If the suspension is for more than 3 school days, the family must be offered an informal hearing within the first 5 days of the suspension. The school must follow these procedures. The parent and the student must receive written notice of the code of conduct violations that led to the suspension. Parents must be given sufficient advance notice of the time and place of the informal hearing. The student has the right to question any witness present at the hearing. The student has the right to speak and to produce witnesses on his or her own behalf. Note for informal hearings. If a student is a child who is currently identified as a student with a disability or was thought to be a student with a disability before the behavioral incident occurred, or currently receives supports and services under Section 504, a manifestation meeting or hearing will be conducted prior to holding the informal hearing to determine if the behavior in question was directly and or substantially related to the student's identified disability. If the behavior in question is determined to be a manifestation of the child's disability, all disciplinary procedures must stop, and the student must be permitted to return to school. Programming, supports, and services must be reviewed to ensure that the student's needs are addressed in an effort to prevent the behavior from reoccurring. If the behavior is not considered to be a manifestation of a disability, disciplinary procedures may continue. The next step would be formal hearings. The school must hold a formal hearing before an expulsion. The school must give at least 3 days' notice of the time and place of the hearing. Parents may ask to reschedule this hearing if they can show good reason. The hearing must be held before the school board or before a committee and a hearing officer appointed by the board. The family has the right to bring an attorney to the hearing, present its own witnesses and evidence, and question the school's witnesses. The hearing must be recorded, and the family has a right to get a copy of the record at the family's expense. Parents have the right to decline participating in a formal board hearing. If they waive the right to a formal board hearing, they no longer have the right to appeal the board decision. Expulsion. An expulsion of a student is the most severe disciplinary action a school district can take in response to student misconduct. An expulsion is any removal from school for more than 10 days in a row. Expulsions can be for a fixed period, or they may be permanent. A school can only expel a student for a violation of a school rule, which is indicated in the Student Code of Conduct. Expulsion is considered only when the school principal is mandated to recommend it, or when the misbehavior poses a serious safety risk to individuals on campus, in the school campus, or during sponsored activities. If a student is expelled, parents have the right to appeal the decision within 30 days of the disciplinary decision. If a parent has waived their right to a hearing and the student is expelled, the parent cannot appeal. An expelled student under the age of 18 must continue to receive an education. The parent must arrange for continued education within 30 days of the expulsion decision. However, if parents are unable to establish an educational program, they are required to promptly notify the district in writing. The district must then provide the student's education. I want to just note here that we don't typically wait for that to happen. We typically have conversations with parents at the very beginning to offer solutions and to provide educational opportunities. If parents move to another district within the state, the new district must enroll them within their home school unless the expulsion was for having a weapon. Schools may also review student discipline records and meet with the parents to discuss appropriate educational options that may better meet the student's needs. In our board documents, we talk about adjudication. So what does the word adjudication mean within the school setting? Adjudication describes the legal process that helps expedite and deliver a resolution regarding a serious disciplinary issue. The result of the process is a judgment that is legally binding. The adjudication is the final legal decision determined and agreed upon by the school district's board of directors. In Coatesville, school board decisions include recommendations to ensure the student's ability to access their education and receive academic, mental health, and/or behavioral supports in preparation for a successful transition back into the school setting when appropriate. In the district, we provide multiple layers of school-based supports and services. We currently have positive behavior interventions and supports. We have behavioral staff in every building. We have mental health therapists in every building, though I will say we're down a little bit because of staffing. I'm not able to fill the positions. We have emotional support programs in grades K to 12. We've added climate coaches at CASH, and we have a student assistance program which focuses on drugs and alcohol and mental health. Our out-of-district placements to provide intensive mental health and behavioral supports include CCIU programs called Options, Options Plus, and Transitions, the Lincoln Center Leadership Academy, off-campus emotional support program, and I will say that there are other programs within the IU and around the county, but these are typically the main ones that we're using. Alternatives to in-person academic instruction. We have APEX online program, which is a self-paced program and includes skills-focused tutorials. We have Eduseer, which provides access to online teachers for academic support. We have Canvas, which allows students to access district curriculum and classroom teachers for academic support in a virtual environment. The expulsions that have been board approved to date, we have a total of 31, which is 1.14% of our grades 7 to 12 population. All of the students who have been expelled to this point are in grades 7 through 12. There have been no students from grades K to 6 that have been expelled to date. Expulsions range from time served, where students can return to school immediately after the board decision, to permanent expulsion, where students may no longer participate in educational or extracurricular activities operated by the school district. These students are, however, supported by the district to ensure that they receive access to educational opportunities. All students have currently been assigned and are participating in educational plans that are supported by the district. Officer Galbraith could not be here tonight, but he added in a couple of slides. So he wanted to talk a little bit about the role of our school resource officer in discipline matters. One point that he wanted to be very clear in making is that school discipline and criminal matters are not the same. The school resource officer does not have a part in the school's discipline process. School discipline and criminal matters are handled separately. Not all school discipline matters are referred to the school resource officer. School administrators have and use discretion. Certain criminal matters are mandatory reportable offenses per state law, as indicated in the MOU approved by the school board in August of 2021. The SRO supports the district in identifying more appropriate school-based services as opposed to referral to juvenile probation. The goal of the SRO and juvenile probation is to divert students from ever being referred to juvenile probation. We can't really talk about discipline unless we talk about climate and culture. School climate refers to the school's effects on students, including teaching practices, diversity, and the relationships among administrators, teachers, parents, and students. School culture refers to the way teachers and other staff members work together and the set of beliefs, values, and assumptions that they share. Trauma. Traumatic stress can arise from a variety of sources. Bullying, and these are some examples: bullying at school, in the community, abuse, neglect, loss of a loved one, witnessing stress in others, life-threatening health situations, community violence, dramatic weather events, school violence, day-to-day exposure to events such as divorce or homelessness. Not everybody responds the same to a life-altering event. What is a trauma-informed school? Adults in the school and community are prepared to recognize and respond to those who have been impacted by traumatic stress. Students are provided with clear expectations and communication strategies to guide them through stressful situations. The goal is not only to provide tools to cope with extreme situations, but to create an underlying culture of respect and support. Becoming a trauma-informed school requires a layered approach to create an environment with clear behavior expectations for everyone, open communication, and sensitivity to the feelings and emotions of others. How are we moving towards a trauma-informed school environment? We provided administrator and staff training. We are providing direct intervention with individual students. We are focusing on relationship building and connecting with students. We are establishing and maintaining expected routines, increasing the level of support to individuals as it is needed, learning to recognize signs of trauma, providing a safe place for students to talk, and anticipating difficult situations and preparing for additional supports if needed. What are we doing to promote change? We are using data to drive instruction and interventions through MTSS. We're providing professional development focused on literacy and strategies to make learning accessible for all students. We are using data to drive behavioral interventions and supports through PBIS. We are conducting ongoing reviews of district policies and procedures. We've established a partnership with the Lincoln Center, and we have been approved for the Department of Justice Stop the Violence grant. The focus will be on trauma-informed care. The district has currently completed the pretest. Those results will be used to create goals for the district. I actually have a meeting tomorrow scheduled with the Lincoln Center so that we can unpack that grant and we can figure out what we can use the grant for. And from there, we will reach out to include community members, anybody that wants to be a part of that planning. So we will reach out for that. We've established a partnership with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. It's called Pathways to Graduation Grant, and that's at our intermediate high school. The focus is on increasing student engagement through relationship building and goal setting. Our SAL screener. In grades K to 7, all staff and administration will be trained in October or by the end of October, and the screener itself will be implemented in the fall of the 2022-2023 school year. And then, again, we've implemented staff and student climate surveys in grades 8 through 12. The data was used to help support the development of the school-wide safety plan. Continuing with what we're doing, implementation of our climate coaches at CASH. They provide direct support to students in de-escalation, peer mediation, and conflict resolution. We've brought on our family liaison, whose work is to help break down the communication barrier, reaching out to families and to promote re-engagement. We recently had a number of administrators and guidance counselors to complete the threat assessment training. I believe we had a few teachers involved with that as well, who were, the work is to expand and build the capacity of our administrators, guidance counselors, and teachers to provide increased opportunities and to identify at-risk students and guide appropriate interventions and supports. Since, I believe, October, we have participated in the School Safety Task Force to begin developing our community partnerships. And by next school year, all of our behavioral staff from EBS will be trauma-informed care certified. What can our families do to help? We would ask that you would monitor your child's social media accounts. Contact the school immediately if you learn that an event has occurred in the community for which supports may be provided in school to help resolve a conflict or to provide just additional student support. Review the student code of conduct with your child. Help students understand what kinds of behaviors are acceptable in a school setting. If you feel that your child is struggling with emotional and behavioral issues at home, reach out to your school so that we may be able to help you identify supports in the community and/or within the school setting. Students and families who do not feel comfortable to report student safety concerns to their child's school may go to the CASD website and enter an anonymous concern through the Safe to Say tab on that page. And now I'd like to bring up Don Corey, the Director of the Chester County Juvenile Probation.
Thank you. Good evening. I first want to start by thanking you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Appreciate the invitation. Want to start off with condensing 30 years of experience I've had in juvenile probation into hopefully a very short presentation. The first 20 years of my career, our department and the operation of the officers in our department could best be summarized as compliance monitors. Youth were generally placed on probation. There was standard conditions of supervision that were fairly universal across kids, and the probation officer simply monitored their compliance with the court-ordered terms of supervision. Our primary response to violations was either detention and placement, and we had high rates of placement. Similar to your system, we have adjudications as well. Youth has a juvenile record if they're adjudicated delinquent for an offense. At the time, over the first 20 years, outcomes less than an adjudication were usually at their lowest, they were at 16%. So Over 80% of the kids were adjudicated delinquent and placed on supervision. A large percentage of those youth who violated the conditions of their supervision were put in detention and ultimately placed. About 2010, a lot of research was done on the effects of compliance monitoring and the effectiveness of it. And essentially, the research indicated that our approach was having no impact in reducing recidivism. So they began looking at what research suggested did have an opportunity to impact recidivism. And the emphasis became on delivering evidence-based practices, cognitive behavioral interventions, using risk assessments to identify higher-risk youth, having more individualized case plans, trying to work with the kids in the community, trying to use diversion, trying to keep them from having a juvenile record, deliver services without having them have the consequences of an adjudication. Most recently, we have begun to consider prevention activities. Historically, through most of my career, juvenile probation has been a reactive agency. We did not get involved unless a youth was arrested and referred to our office. But over the last 10 years, we have now begun training probation officers to deliver all kinds of cognitive behavioral interventions. We are dealing with kids in the community. We're keeping them from detention and placement, and my last slide will show you the change over the last 10 years. But we have still not done anything on the prevention level. To deliver those services, the youth had to be referred to our office. So last fall, the Georgetown University offered a program for any county well, they actually narrowed it down to about 30 counties in Pennsylvania to apply. And it's targeting trying to address disproportionate minority contact or racial and ethnic disparities. And the statistics for that are at 10 different decision points in the justice system. So it starts with arrest and referral to juvenile probation, goes through all of our dispositional outcomes, includes detention, placement, certification to adult court. They look at all those decision points to see if there is disparities. We applied as a county to participate in the Georgetown training program, and we're one of 7 counties around the state that were selected. The emphasis on the program is to pick one of those decision points and try to implement interventions that will reduce and affect those disproportionate numbers. So we reached out to the Coatesville School District and wanted to talk about trying to reduce referrals for school-related offenses that come either to the district justice or to juvenile probation. And just a quick note, even if a youth is referred to the district justice, if they don't comply with the district justice's order, if they don't pay the fine or they don't do the community service or whatever else is ordered by the district justice, that becomes an offense that can be referred to juvenile probation. So youth can get to us directly from an incident, or they can get there indirectly by not complying with the district court. So we've reached out to the school district, and our hope is that we can come to an agreement on implementing a diversion program which will allow youth to not be referred either to the district justice or to juvenile probation, yet still be able to get interventions, get assessments, and potentially get exposure to some of the evidence-based practices we deliver without actually being referred to juvenile probation. So our hope is to have a position that is a juvenile probation department position, but not a probation officer who's working in conjunction with school officials and the school police to divert youth, get them assessed, get them interventions, get them an opportunity to get some of these services without actually being referred to juvenile probation. We've only last week had our proposal approved by Georgetown, and we have meetings at the end of this week with the superintendent and members of the school to begin developing agreements on what kind of charges are going to be appropriate, memorandums of understanding of how the program will operate, and we're tentatively aiming to be up and running certainly before the next school year and hopefully before the end of this current school year. If I can just go to the last slide. So 2009, We averaged on a daily basis 146 youth in out-of-home residential placement at any one time. As you can see, that trend has fallen. I ran the stats a week ago, and we had 23 youth in out-of-home care. So that represents an 84% drop over the roughly 13-year period. A couple other stats I didn't put on the slide, but I'd like to share quickly. Our diversion rate, so in our agency, diversion is considered any outcome that's less than an adjudication of delinquency. So it used to be 16% in our most recent 2020 stats that we have available. We were up to 40% of our cases were handled at something less than an adjudication of delinquency. We're hoping that that trend continues. The other thing I mentioned at the very beginning is that our compliance monitoring approach historically had no impact on reducing recidivism. And in fact, in Pennsylvania, they didn't even have a definition of recidivism until around 2010. The definition is any new arrest and conviction as a juvenile or as an adult within 2 years of case closing. So now we look at what's happened to the kids 2 years after, in the 2 years following exiting our system. In the baseline year of 2010, the state rate was 21-point-something%, and the Chester County rate was 19%. In the most recent stats, the state rate had dropped to 18, and Chester County had dropped to 15. That is stats as of 2018. They have to wait 2 years for the cases to close, so we don't have anything more current than 2018. So our recidivism rate of kids getting in trouble or getting convicted within 2 years of case closing has dropped from 19% to 15% over the course of the last 10 years. So there's always going to be kids that get in trouble, but we're trying to lessen how deeply they get into the system one way or the other. If they're referred to us, we're trying to keep them from being adjudicated and placed, and our numbers suggest that that's happening. But now we want to take it a step further, collaborate with the school and see if we can divert them from even coming in the door to our service. That's a better level of diversion than getting deeper into our system if they never get into it. But at the same time, be able to deliver some of the services that our probation officers have been trained to do without actually having the kid have to get arrested and referred to us to receive them. So I don't know if you have any questions, but that's the end of my presentation.
To my colleagues, do we have any questions for either of the two presenters?
I do, yes. To Ms. George, for the mental health therapists in each building, do they have caseloads?
They do.
And do you know what their caseloads are by average?
Yeah, most of the caseloads are between probably 36 and 50.
Okay, so that's a lot of cases.
It is.
So does that mean that they are readily available to assist then in any spontaneously escalating?
Our experience has been that they are readily available. What that sometimes means, though, is that for the students who are scheduled there for an appointment, may have to be rescheduled.
Okay.
But they have been very approachable.
Okay. How are the mental health therapists then made aware of any spontaneous situations that might be occurring in a different part of the building?
So they're part of our school building. They're a part of everything that goes on in the building. So they are just part of the staff.
So, but if they're in their office and there's a fight on the third floor, how are they made aware then that there's a fight going on the third floor?
Well, they may not be at the fight. They handle the situations that are coming afterwards to deal with students. So they're not really part of the fight. We have other people that are working with the de-escalation piece, including our administrators, our climate coaches, our behavioral staff.
Okay. You also mentioned a safe place for students to talk. Is that an actual physical space? Or
well,
is there a sensory room? Is there a quiet room? Is there a de-escalation space?
So it depends on the student and the relationships that they've built with people. So some of our students have identified administrators that they prefer to speak with. Some of our students go to our mental health therapists. Some go to the behavioral therapist, the behavioral supports in the building. Some have a case manager that they go to. So we pretty much allow students to choose the people that they feel most comfortable with. That's a safe place for them.
Okay. In the event that a student maybe having an issue and escalating emotions and things like that, their safe space, their safe person to talk to may be in a different part of the building, maybe teaching at that time, whatever the case may be. How then is that mitigated for that one student?
Oftentimes, our behavioral staff will step in and just kind of de-escalate the situation, but there's always a follow-up with the person that they feel most comfortable with to finish talking through it and then to provide that ongoing support.
Okay, and I'm sorry, one more question. You said that we are moving towards a more trauma-informed district as a whole. Do you, and if I missed it, I apologize, do you know, do we have a number of staff that have been trauma-informed trained so far?
Well, all of our mental health therapists, the majority of our behavioral staff, I believe all of our guidance counselors at this point have gone through the threat assessment training, which deals with the trauma and identifying students who may be struggling, and then implementing strategies to support that. And most of our administrators have gone through that training.
Okay, so.
I don't have an actual number to give you, but I can get that for you.
Okay, yes, please, thank you. Also, you said by October, I believe, that we wanted to be fully trained on trauma-informed, or did I misunderstand that? I'm sorry.
No, not the district. By the beginning of next school year, all of our EBS staff who are providing the majority of our behavioral supports will be trauma certified. And then through the Department of Justice grant, most of that grant focuses on training, and so that's in multiple layers, and it goes from the school board to any support staff in the buildings, to our parents, to our community. It includes everybody, our bus drivers. So there are multiple layers. There's a lot of work to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. George, I have a question. In regards to the manifestation that's done during the assessment process with disciplinary action, can you explain who is involved with that assessment, as well as what kind of assessment tools that you're using to make the determination?
So a manifestation determination meeting is under IDEA for special education. So it's pretty much run with the same people that are mandatory at an IEP meeting, with the addition of a school psychologist. We include our school psychologist who comes in. They review the students' records. They review any kind of evaluations. They pretty much run the meeting to go. There's no step-by-step process. It's already laid out. And then as a team, we determine whether or not the behavior that we were meeting about is directly and substantially related to the disability that has been identified. But within that process, the school psychologist describes the disability and talks about how that may impact the student and their decision-making and the choices that they've made with the behaviors.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. George, I do have a question for you. Back in the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the code of conduct, and you said, and maybe I heard it wrong, but you said that the code of conduct is reviewed after breaks. So my first question with that is that after like Christmas, Thanksgiving, spring, is it done K through 12?
So I'm going to tell you that it's not consistent across the district.
Okay.
These are ways that different schools have implemented it. There are some people that do assemblies. There are some people that do small groups. There are some people that do targeted lessons to address. So it depends on the age of the student. It depends on what's needed in that building and how they'll best receive it.
And then my second question is, because I don't have the slide up in front of me, I believe that you said that the code of conduct is also done through the Monday morning messages?
Yes.
So is that K through 12?
This is the elementary. And
only elementary?
I believe it's in 7th grade as well.
Okay, so it stops then at 7th grade. It's not done through the intermediate or the high school?
I mean, I would be.
I didn't see it on there, and so I looked through my morning messages, and so I did not see it on there, so that's why I'm saying it's only going through K through middle school?
I know for sure it goes up to 7th grade.
Okay.
I think I see Mr. Maloney over there. Okay.
So I did, I did not see it in the last couple of ones that I quickly looked through from both you and Ms. Snyder. So that's why I was just asking if it's done, if it's something that maybe we could begin to implement in that level. Just, okay. That's all I have. Thank you for the presentation from both.
I wanted to thank you. I thought that was extremely comprehensive. It is a complex problem and challenge that we have, and I'm hopeful that the community that was paying attention can recognize the level of attention that the school district and you place on the safety of our children. And I was impressed with your work and how it's evolved over time. And I'm grateful that you're going to be part of working with us, and I wish you and your group a lot of success working with Coatesville, because we would like to do everything we can to ensure the success of our students. And just because a child gets into mischief or does some things wrong should not be ruling their life going forward. And I'm grateful for your work. Thank you.
I have one question. The question to the probation officer. Do the same people that handle criminals handle the kids? Or do you have a different group of people working with them?
If you're talking about within the probation department, we have a totally different department, totally different probation officer staff. If you're talking about the interventions that are used, those are generally different as well. And same with our if a kid has to go to residential placement, they don't go to jail, they go to a residential placement facility. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not.
Sort of, kindly, because when I see a probation officer, I get the school pipeline to prison, and that sort of turns me off. And I don't know why just a probation officer is here when I don't see any psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, because we're dealing with children, not criminals.
Well, the program that we're proposing is going to have a social worker who's going to be doing assessments and referring kids for interventions. We're trying to not have them, they're not going to have an assigned probation officer. We're trying to keep them from coming into our doors. So I think that would be consistent with your perception of a probation officer, because they wouldn't be coming in our doors at probation.
Yeah, I heard you say that recidivism rate went down. There's no such thing as recidivism unless you've been in prison.
Well, in our system for juveniles, again, I just work with the juvenile probation population, so we define recidivism as whether you commit a new offense as a juvenile or as an adult within 2 years of being done with us in the juvenile probation system. So that's how it's defined in the state. That's the stat that we look at. It doesn't, you don't have to be, you don't go to prison. It's whether you've committed an offense as a juvenile, and then when you're closed, did you commit another offense within 2 years? So that's how it's defined.
So when a child leaves, say comes to you, and when he leaves, he doesn't have a prison sort of sense, or in other words, when he's exposed to a probation officer for a period of time, that child develops a certain attitude. And you're telling me that when they come through your situation, they come out better and not prison acclimated?
I'm telling you that every effort we're making is to try to avoid that. We don't have prison, so to speak, but we do have the residential placement. So I showed you we're using them significantly less, 84% less over the last 12 years than we used to. So we're trying to keep kids in the community, in their homes, and delivering services there. We're trying to keep kids from having a juvenile record. Our diversion stats have increased from 16% to 40%. So that means kids, when they exit us, don't have 40% of the kids don't have a juvenile record. I'd like to see that higher. All I can say is we're moving in the right direction. I believe that the movement is consistent with keeping kids out of the school to prison pipeline, because less kids are having a record and less kids are going to a juvenile placement. Do I think the school to prison pipeline is gone? No, but I think we're moving in the right direction, and like I said before, historically, we've never got involved or in prevention activities. We waited for a kid to come to us. So we're trying to work with the school to work with kids without having them referred to us, which again will keep them from penetrating our system deeper, which is our definition of diversion, keeping them from getting deeper into our system.
Mr. Corey, if I could, and Mr. Brown, if I could, that's how we were introduced, right? Mr. Corey reached out to us directly and started by basically apologizing for the system, saying that we have historically not connected. And what we want to try to do is connect with the district so that your students don't end up to where you said come out of a system with a mentality that we don't want to have. I think this is sort of the thinking of like, you're not going to arrest your way, you're not going to incarcerate your way to a better person, right? And so this is what we're trying to do. And part of the data here is to take a look at the recidivism rate, repetition, right? And what the impact, the disparate impact is to students of color particularly, because that's an issue that we know is something we talk about as a team and need to deal with. So thank you, Mr. Porter.
I understand and appreciate, but to me that's like leaving a wolf to watch the hen house. And I don't like this fact that the kids, our children, are turned over to probation officers when they need psychological help. And they have trauma, like you mentioned. And and this is no offense to you, I was a policeman for 6 years. I don't think policemen are trained in such a way, and your state of mind is not such that you can deal with a child. That's not even your job to deal with a child that has certain types of trauma. Do you think so? If I'm wrong, I apologize.
I do think so, because I think you're absolutely right. There's youth that come into our system that have had trauma, and if we're not trained to try to deal with that, then we're not going to be able to do our job. We do have trauma training for our probation officers. We do assess every youth that comes in our door, a trauma assessment, a mental health assessment, a risk assessment, and if needed, a substance abuse assessment. The way you describe the probation officer, I would say the first 20 years of my career, it would be hard to argue with you. But I would be willing to argue with you over the last 10 years that the changes we've made. Probation officers are not just enforcing the orders of the court. They are working directly with kids one-on-one, doing cognitive behavioral activities, trying to help them make the internal changes in their head instead of just trying to force them to change by threatening them with outcomes. It's changed over the last 10 years. Is it perfect? No. But I'll just say we're endeavoring to move to a better place, and I think the description of them as wolves is a little stronger than I'm comfortable saying I agree with. But I think we're moving in the right direction, and I'd like to hope that this program proves that collaboration between our department and the school is a good thing. That's our goal.
I have one more question. So you had said that for up until now, you guys have been fairly reactive and your goal is to be preventative. What is the plan for that? Is it, I know that there's a social worker working with you guys, but is the plan is it through interviews? Do you plan to have one social worker interview 5,800 students?
Well, the plan right now, which again, we are just developing it. Really, our proposal was just approved by the Georgetown last week, and we're meeting with the school. These will be kids who have committed some sort of offense. It's not going to be every kid in the school. But instead of the kid being referred to the district justice or being referred to juvenile probation, they're going to go into what we're calling a diversion program, where they'll get assessments by a social worker, and they'll be recommended for whatever interventions are determined through the assessments. Okay. Some of those might be to get a further assessment. There may be like, hey, this kid needs a real trauma assessment, or really needs substance abuse. Whatever assessment they need, they'll get, but they'll get those services without being referred to us. Independent of that, again, in the very ground floor right now, we do have services that we'd be willing to deliver to youth who aren't active with us. But that's something we're on the ground floor of discussing. We have a lot of cognitive behavioral intervention groups. I don't know if you've ever heard of girls' circles or boys' council, but there's a lot of work we've done with kids, but they're only done when they're referred to us. We'd like to offer it to the school for kids that are struggling in some way, who may not even have been arrested, but they're struggling. And we always historically figure the school knows what's going on before we do. So there's a lot of gray area that we're still working out, but it would be trying to divert those kids that commit an offense from being referred to us, sorry, or the district court. Okay. I'm acting like a wolf, sorry, I'm attacking
Thank
things.
you.
Sorry.
I'm going to jump in real quick and ask a question of you, Ms. George. So first and foremost, I appreciate the presentation. Very informative, very detailed, and I think it was kind of spot on with the topics at hand this evening. One of the things I've struggled with as a board member going through the adjudication process is placing kids out of our district, and I'm sure that is something near and dear to your heart as well. You don't want to see that happen. I don't think anybody up here or in this room want to see that happen. But the reality is it does happen. And when it does happen, I'm going to shift gears for a second. Some of the kids that are placed out of district have very difficult situations at home. And they rely on a school setting to be a safe haven and to provide structure they may not otherwise have. And I know I'm preaching to the choir to you and to the people in this room, but that's something I've always internally battled with in going through adjudications. Now, that being said, I also know that there's a cost associated with placing children outside of our district. And let's assume that that cost is $20,000. We're going to deal in theoretics here. At $20,000 a student for that student to get the services needed outside of our district. If we have 30 kids that are adjudicated and expelled at $600,000, I can't imagine there's not a substantial enough offset if we were to have an in-school suspension room, where while it's not ideal, our intent is to head it off before it gets to that expulsion level or to that disciplinary level. We want to get to a situation where we're proactively resolving situations instead of reacting to. In a perfect world, that would happen. We wouldn't be having conversations about adjudications. My question would be, at a presumed, let's say, $600,000 for that same data set of 30 students, the offset that I'm assuming in my head justifies staff additions with a return on investment. But what more importantly it does is it keeps kids in our buildings with structure, with resources that we have that control over. So I guess my question that's hidden in there is, have we begun discussions as part of the disciplinary process to reinstitute an in-school suspension opportunity that gives those students that are in there more of a controlled environment, to give them the peer mediation, to give them the supports that are needed in order to address the trauma or the situations that arose within our own walls, as opposed to relying on other people to help do that? It's a long-winded question, but it was important to provide some context. So my question is, have we gone down that path? Have we considered at a more analytical level the possibilities of, by instituting that, the offsetting costs and the staffing capabilities by keeping it in-house and addressing those?
So there's a whole bunch of answers to that.
I'm sorry. That's a confusing question.
So some of our buildings do have in-school suspension rooms, and those are the steps where we follow before we get to an expulsion. If we can support a student in the building, provide interventions, they may have a suspension a day or two or whatever, but they're getting resources within that building. They may not have to have an out-of-school suspension. They may have an in-school suspension. You have to remember that anytime you're pulling a student away from their education and away from their peers, it's still, if it goes beyond that 10 days, you're still looking at an expulsion, okay? The other thing we have to remember is that some of our students struggle very much to be in an environment that has so many things going on. And they really need that opportunity to connect with somebody in a smaller environment, to receive more intensive interventions that we can provide within the district. And so really, the answer to your question is that it needs to be considered on a case-by-case basis. And if you remember in the in the PowerPoint, it actually talked about expulsion being for those students who, number one, were required to look at that by state law. And the second is if they are students that create a safety issue within the building. And so I think that it's reasonable to assume that if we have a student who is in a place where they are a safety issue, the likelihood of keeping that student contained in one room all day long is probably not going to work. And so you really do have to look at it on an individual basis, but the things that you're talking about are those steps that we need to be doing before we get to that behavior that creates a situation where the student is not able to be in that building.
Understood. Thank you. Last question I have, I promise. There have been a lot of questions thrown your way, which is a good thing. You gave the presentation at a very in-depth level, and we referred to the code of conduct multiple times in the beginning. I think it's important to just reiterate kind of what you were alluding to, in that the code of conduct helped provide structure to the step-by-step process for the disciplinary steps or measures that are taken for that particular incident. What is the code of conduct review period, and where do we stand in terms of that review period? Like, when is it up for renewal or revision?
So we review the code of conduct every year. We have looked, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in discipline this year. And so it has led us to review that code of conduct, to review the levels of supports that we can do, you know, before we get to an expulsion, to look at creating a more structured process, you know, for everybody to follow, to make it easier, that we have some consistency with our discipline. That code of conduct that we've created has, actually I'm working with Dr. Dunlap, so he has it. We have been aligning the things in the conduct with our policies. And so the next step is to go in and just kind of tie it all up, and then it will come before you for your review.
Okay. Follow up, I lied, I do have another question. You caused it though, you made me think of another question. So looking at the code of conduct, obviously we have the structure in place, the pillars are there. Is it something that we typically develop like an ad hoc or a task force or committee of community members, staff members at multiple levels that are enabled to provide input? Is that something that happens on an annual basis, or is that something that's kind of a rolling every 3 years?
So administrators are included in the process. They typically reach out to, last year, I mean, I've only done it last year and then this year. Typically what I understand is that they reach out to the CADA representatives who review it with them. They take it out to the staff in the building, get feedback, and then bring it back to the administrator, who then brings it to me.
Okay.
That's how it was done last year.
Okay. Have we involved key stakeholders? You mentioned two people that I admire dearly, Josh Kranz and Rob Marshall, but have we reached out to community advocates or people within our community who have a incredibly high vested interest in what's best for this district and most importantly for our students? Are they involved in any of those discussions?
I mean, like I said, this is only, we didn't do this last year.
Yeah.
So no, last year that was not done that way. I see no reason why we can't include more people. That's just not an issue.
I know it's tough when you're going through a process like that to have a lot of hands in the pot, but if you have a very diverse number of hands that are playing a part in that at multiple levels, I think it'll help to make our job a heck of a lot easier.
Right. And I think we have the framework, right? It's pretty well set up at this point. We just need to go through and refine and talk about the language. Language is a big piece. And we know what we're trying to say, so having input from other people is valuable.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. George. You're off the hook for me. Anybody else have any other questions?
I do, yeah. So you had said, you had said that we have ISS rooms in all our buildings.
No, not all of them. Some of our buildings do have ISS rooms.
Okay, do we have the staff to staff those ISS rooms?
That's why we don't have them in every building.
Even in any of the buildings, do we have staff to staff them?
So teachers are assigned duties to go in and cover in-school suspension rooms.
Okay.
In some buildings.
I'm sorry?
In some buildings.
Right. Also, as a personal thought, I do think some of the levels in our levels of the code of conduct and what that requires are extremely vague, and I realize that some of that is probably by design. However, it does leave, there is, in my opinion, too much room in there for interpretation, which ultimately leads to 30 adjudications, 31 in a year. While it is less than 2%, I think, of our entire student body, it's still really high. Also, as far as the code of conduct being reviewed, to echo and Mr. Finkbonner's point, I do think that it is critical that that key stakeholders be involved in every step of the process, and not just to say, hey, look over this and tell me what you think, but to be involved in creating and changing anything that may not work functionally just because of staff, space, class sizes, things like that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hanna, I think we have a curriculum update.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. Thank you, Ms. George. Yes, we do. We'll turn it over to Mr. Pelayo, Ms. Jones, and Ms. Mancinelli. And thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Mr. Hanna, community members, staff that is in the audience. We've had a pretty exciting 6 months in the areas of curriculum, assessment, instruction, and programming, specifically with English language arts. We have had the opportunity this year to pilot several programs in grades 6 through 7. The goal, I'm sorry, K through 7. The goal was to identify a core program that would support our students moving forward, ensuring that they're receiving the reading, writing, and communication skills necessary to progress through the grade levels. Before we get started, I think it's important to thank the teachers that actually took on the role as pilot teachers. We've had about 2 per grade level that took on this role. We have been saying for the past year how difficult it is to come out of a pandemic, but it's even harder to come out of a pandemic and learn a new program to implement with your class. I also would be remiss if I did not thank the curriculum team, Ms. Cassandra Jones, Lynn Mancinelli, Heather Messenger, and Lauren Danick. We're going to start the evening off just introducing you to House Bill 2045. This is a new House bill, and you might not be familiar with this House bill. House Bill 2045 amends Public School Code of 1949. The intent is that teachers will be equipped to facilitate high-quality reading instruction grounded in the science of reading and intervention services to address student reading needs. School districts, based on 2045, will be required to provide professional development for teachers in foundational skills and instructional interventions based on the science of reading. The science of reading is a comprehensive body of research that encompasses years of scientific knowledge. The research provides us with the information we need to gain a deeper understanding of how we learn to read, what skills are involved, and how those skills work together, and which parts of the brain are responsible for reading development. From this research, an evidence-based best practice approach for teaching foundational literacy skills called structured literacy has evolved. So why begin the presentation with House Bill 2045? I'm excited to be able to say that the programs that we piloted this year and hopefully will approve to be implemented in 22-23 are all tied to the science of reading and through the use of structured literacy. We know that being a proficient reader has an impact on a student's entire education. And again, I want to thank the teachers and curriculum staff for their work and dedication to the process to ensure our students are supported by this program. I think the fact that we have identified programs that we are going to be required to use moving forward is a step in the right direction, and we will be ahead of the game starting the 22-23 school year. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jones.
All right, good evening. I want to start by, again, thanking you all for the opportunity to provide an update on the status of our program pilot and our curriculum work here in the district.
I'm super excited to report that we are right on schedule. So you have the timeline up there, which was shared previously. All of it is tied to the 3-year plan that was provided to the board back in the summer for English language arts. And really what we're trying to accomplish is to ensure that our curriculum is aligned to our PA core standards, that we're using high quality resources that are evidence-based, and that we're training our staff not just in implementation of a program, but in best practices, right? Because the teachers are the most important part of all of this. And really, when our teachers have the knowledge that they need, it doesn't matter what program we use, because they're going to be able to meet the needs of students in their classrooms, regardless of where they're starting. We really believe strongly that literacy is equity, right? We talk a lot about equity in this district. If we want our students to be able to leave us when they graduate, and we want them to be able to have opportunities, whether those opportunities are to become gainfully employed, to pursue post-secondary schooling, to serve in the military, they need to be literate, right? And they need to have the skills that are really required to function in society. And that's really our mission, and that's where this work has really begun. So you'll see that where we're currently at, we're in February, and we're here tonight to make a formal recommendation to the school board for adoption of a K-5 program and then a middle school program as well, okay? So since the last time we met, we did audit our pilot programs, we did our mid-year benchmark assessments, we were able to increase exposure to our pilot programs. We actually were able to give some additional K-5 teachers the opportunity to pilot both of the programs that we were trialing over the last 6 months. And so they were able to kind of take a deep dive into the program, implement a unit. They weren't able to fully implement the program. That just wasn't feasible at this point in the year, but they were able to implement components of the programs, and they were able to provide additional feedback. We gathered feedback from our pilot teachers as well as the parents of the students in our pilot classrooms. I'm happy to report that we had about 40 parents participate in the survey, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but I was very happy with that level of participation and the feedback that I got. And then we were able to analyze our benchmark data, and I did gather some preliminary quotes because I want to be honest, an adoption is a very costly endeavor, but I think it's going to be worth it based on the preliminary data that we can share tonight that came out of our pilot. All right, so this was shared previously. We took a multi-prong approach to evaluation and selection, and these are the different components of the evaluation and selection process. So we looked at alignment to research, alignment to the PA core standards, third-party and independent reviews, supports for all learners, professional development, stakeholder feedback and experiences, program effectiveness, and then cost and sustainability. So I'm going to start with elementary. So in elementary, we piloted 2 programs. We piloted Amplify CKLA and Open Court Reading. So we had a committee of 30 district employees, including teachers, reading specialists, building administrators, and central office administrators. We convened on February 16th to evaluate Open Court and CKLA. In advance of that meeting, I shared out a folder. That folder will actually be available by tomorrow afternoon on our website, so that the community as well as the board is able to see the documents that were provided to the committee to go through that evaluation process. So some of those documents you've already seen. They've already been submitted to the board when we made the initial proposal to pilot. Some of the documentation has been gathered along the way, particularly like the program effectiveness data as well as the feedback, so the survey results from both teachers and parents. We reviewed evidence for each prong of the evaluation process. Pilot teachers shared feedback and experiences throughout the meeting. Building administrators were able to weigh in based on classroom observations, walkthroughs, communication with the pilot teachers, as well as families that have shared positive experiences. And then our vote did result in the recommendation to adopt Open Court Reading. Okay, so we actually, everyone there, I will tell you it's a good problem to have, everyone there was very passionate about the program that they were piloting, okay? At the very beginning of the meeting, the consensus was that when we left the room that day, we were going to know which program that we were going to be bringing to the board, but everybody felt confident that there was no way that we could make a bad decision because we had 2 really great programs that we had piloted. So to just kind of summarize, I wanted to keep this as simplistic as possible. Those of you that are interested in really delving into the data, like I said, that folder will be available on our website so that you can see the documentation. But to summarize it, CKLA had stronger third-party evaluations, and the team overall felt that the professional development offerings and support were stronger. But Open Court had stronger supports for all learners, stronger stakeholder feedback from both teachers and parents, and better overall program effectiveness, okay? What I will tell you is that we prioritize the data in our primary grades, K1 and 2, because we felt strongly that students starting out with a strong foundation were more likely, and that's what research tells us, to continue to experience success in reading, writing, speaking, listening, if they were on grade level by the end of 2nd grade. This is a little bit difficult to see, but you'll see that students in K1 and 2 across the board perform better in our Open Court classrooms. Students in 3, 4, and 5 generally perform better in our CKLA classrooms. What I want to emphasize is that students in both pilot programs outperformed our current program units of study, okay? So in looking at the data, we used our district overall, or overview, like our district level data, and we were able to compare the performance of students in our pilot classrooms to students in our non-pilot classrooms. By doing that comparison, we were able to determine that, again, both pilot programs were more effective than our current program units of study. Before I go on to middle school, I feel like it might be best to ask if there are any questions about elementary now.
Ms. Jones, I have a question. These pilot programs you are discussing, the Open Court and the CKLA, are they looking to replace the Lexia program that's currently running?
No.
So that's just an additional these are 2 additional programs you're looking to implement?
I can explain it. So I'm going to touch upon Lexia. Lexia is a supplemental tool. It's not intended to be a core resource. It's to supplement our core program. The 2 programs that we piloted, CKLA and Open Court, will replace, well, would be Open Court is the recommendation, would be replacing units of study, which is our core reading program at this time.
I see.
Okay.
Okay. My other question is, what was it about Open Court that the K through 2 did better at, and as well as the older students for CKLA? Like, what was the key that made those 2 appropriate for those 2 age groups?
So we really tried to prioritize specific measures. So at the primary level, at kindergarten in particular, we focused on phonemic awareness because phonemic awareness is the strongest indicator of future reading success. And that's not just, my opinion, that's what research says, that students that have strong phonemic awareness skills in the early grades typically are students that then continue to experience reading success in the future and tend to then become proficient, skilled readers as they progress and get older.
Okay.
And so I'll give you a little bit of data, if that would be helpful. In kindergarten in particular, we prioritized first sound fluency because we gave that assessment in the fall and then gave that assessment again in the winter. Our district average for students on and above grade level or on and above benchmark for our district average was 56%, okay? But in our Open Court classroom, we had 74% of students on or above, okay? So district average 56%, Open Court classroom 74%. That's significant. And I will tell you that our Open Court classroom actually started out with more students in the well below benchmark range, okay? And then looking at overall composite, and all of this information will be in the folder that I share with you. You'll be able to look at all the data analysis, just so that we can ensure the process is transparent. I just didn't want to go too far into the weeds with the data in the presentation. If I look at the composite scores in kindergarten, which would be like the best indicator of overall reading health, right? Like a student's overall reading proficiency. Our district average for mid-year was 39% on or above, okay? In our open court classroom, we had 53% on or above, okay? So we really chose in the primary grades to look at those foundational skills, phonemic awareness, letter sound knowledge, the ability to demonstrate basic phonics decoding skills, right, with our nonsense word fluency measures. And then in the upper grades, we prioritized oral reading fluency, knowing that that's the bridge to comprehension.
And you said this data will be available on the website?
Yeah, so
Perfect.
there will be a link to a folder on the OneDrive, and then there will be subfolders for elementary and middle school, and then you'll be able to look at the evidence or documentation for each prong of the evaluation process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, for middle school, so we had a smaller committee, but it was a much smaller pilot. So we had a committee of 14 district employees, again, teachers, reading specialists, and then we had central office administrators. We actually met the week prior on February 9th. We were fortunate to have Mr. Hanna join us for that meeting. Again, we reviewed evidence for each prong of the evaluation process. Pilot teachers shared feedback and experiences, and the discussion resulted in the recommendation to adopt wit and wisdom. So again, just to kind of illustrate, same thing, both programs that we piloted were very strong programs. Like, we were very strategic going into the process, making sure to choose really high quality programs that had been vetted and had really great evaluations from third-party evaluators. And so you'll see everything here is marked stronger. And what I will share overall is that Amplify ELA had stronger supports for all learners, but Wit and Wisdom by far had better alignment to the standards, stronger stakeholder feedback, and better overall program effectiveness. Okay. Again, I want to share that both of our pilot programs outperformed our current program, units of study, okay? We had the perfect scenario at the middle school level because each building has 3 teams. So in each of the grade levels, we had 1 team pilot Amplify ELA, 1 team pilot Wit and Wisdom, and then 1 team continued to use our current program, which is units of study, okay? I want to provide some additional data. So in 6th grade, the students that were instructed in units of study, which is our current core program, of those students, only 13% moved 1 or more indicators mid-year, okay? In comparison, students in our Wit and Wisdom pilot, 27% of them moved 1 or more indicators, okay? In 7th grade, 18% of students in units of study moved 1 or more indicators, but 31% of students in Wit and Wisdom moved 1 or more, okay? And again, that data will be available for you to review. If you have any additional questions, regarding the data, I'm happy to, meet again individually with any of you to kind of go over that more thoroughly. All right, this is the part that I kind of dread. So let's talk about cost, okay? A core program adoption, it comes with a large price tag, okay? But I want you to understand that this is the primary resource that we are using to teach reading, writing, speaking, and listening in our district, okay? To adopt open court in grades K to 5, we're looking at a price tag of $714,201.66, okay? That is a 3-year adoption. That will be paid through, if you approve it, we would use ESSER's funds to pay for that adoption. Knowing the financial status of the district, though, we also need to make sure that we can maintain that program once ESSER's funds cease to exist. So to maintain that program, there will be an annual cost of $65,280, okay? That will cover student consumables and online licensing, okay? The program does have online components available through Connect Ed. Students are already familiar with Connect Ed because of our current math program, Everyday Math, okay? So the benefit there would be a consistent platform for both ELA and math that our students, our teachers, and our parents are accessing. As far as Wit and Wisdom, we're looking at an adoption in 6 and 7. I want to make sure that everyone is aware, though, that we need to do something with 8th grade, okay? We're looking at potentially piloting 2 units in 8th grade. The difficulty is going to be that in 8th grade, with them being up here on the campus, they have half the amount of instructional time as 6 and 7, and the program is designed for a full block period, okay? The cost will be $132,149.82. The annual cost to then maintain after that 3-year adoption period would be $29,854.73. Okay? So then I have a total there for the 3-year adoption at the bottom, and then a yearly, the yearly total cost that it would be to maintain these programs. So again, I'm going to ask for questions. Questions, thoughts,
So
concerns?
the question I have is, so why does this qualify for ESSER funds?
It's a good question, Ms. Mills, and it's actually been written into the ESSERS 2 grant, not specifically for a specific program, but to the ability to address our core programming, because we know, or we thought, that the core program that we were using at the time would not help students with the learning loss. So during when we had the ability to write ESSERS 2 grant, I addressed in the grant there's going to be a need to improve our core programming for both ELA and math, because what we're currently using may not be able to address the learning loss.
Which
that was
seems to be
approved.
evident from the data that
It's very
she
evident
told
from
us.
the data.
Right, very evident in the data. Makes us optimistic. Just imagine if the rest of the kids, when they use it.
Mr. Ply, I have a question. This is my favorite slide, by the way, of the entire presentation. Finances, that's in my alley, right? So excellent to see being results driven, some positivity coming from the pilots. From a cost perspective, completely understand that you got to spend money in order to make progress in an area that has been neglected for some time. That being said, can you explain a little bit of kind of what our evaluatory process is to ensure that these programs continue to improve the education of our students, that we see that return on that investment? Can you just kind of explain for everyone what that process looks like?
Sure. So in-house, within the district, we have our benchmarking assessments that we actually just started implementing this year. So fortunately for grades K to 7, we have the Acadians benchmarking, which was utilized to determine which program would be best to be selected. We'll continue to do that benchmarking 3 times a year as we move forward. And the information from the benchmarking will assist us in what areas of this core program are successful and which areas may still need supplemental materials to support instruction. No matter what core program you purchase, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. And that's why during the first ESSERS grants, the CARES grant, we focused primarily on interventions, knowing that we had specific needs to meet prior to looking at the core program. So we're going to use Acadians, and obviously now that we're getting back to somewhat normal, and we will have our annual PSSA assessments, we'll use that data also to assess whether or not this programming has been successful.
Thank you.
If I could add to that too, there will be training for our administrative team, and they really will be trained to facilitate, I'm not going to use the term fidelity, but integrity checks. And really, that's not to go into a classroom and say, well, you're not doing this right or you're not doing that right, but it's really just to ensure that we're implementing the program with integrity, right, as it's intended, and that we're able to provide coaching and additional support and training to our staff in a proactive manner, right? And so part of this is having a comprehensive PD plan and ensuring that all layers of staff are trained from the top all the way to the bottom.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
One question.
Yes.
Has this program been put in, is it in session now? Somewhere do you have any data to show what this program is like after it's been in place for over a year or 2 years?
The pilot was just for this year.
In other words, it's not unusual for a 6th or 7th grader, if I'm wrong, teachers raise your hand, for a 6th or 7th grader to be reading on a 3rd grade level. And a lot of our kids can't get in law school because their reading inability. And colleges are complaining because when they get kids, they got to go back to teaching basics almost. So what my question is, and I'm glad to hear this, is that you're going to eliminate that. Is that right?
That's the goal.
You're going to eliminate the fact that I'm not going to have a bunch of sixth graders reading on a fourth grade level.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That is the goal.
Then
Absolutely.
I applaud you if that's the case, because that's common.
It is common, and it's not just common here, it's a national crisis.
And you're telling us, this board, that if we take this program, that's not going to happen anymore.
What I'm telling you is that we have a better chance of eliminating that if we choose one of these resources, particularly over our current core program.
Okay, because one of the things they were complaining about in one of the meetings is we haven't had any scholars lately, or, you know, our academia is going down. And that's one of the reasons people don't want to bring their kids to Coatesville. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying if we implement this program here, you're going to make a significant difference in the school system as far as our kids being able to read and comprehend, and then the diversity of the ESL people who come in here and can't read at all and don't even speak the language. Does this take that into consideration?
It does, and I'm going to go over some additional supports for English language learners now. What I'm saying to you is our goal as a district is for all of our students to graduate and be proficient readers so that they can be successful you know, in whatever they choose to do beyond high school. So if that's advancing to post-secondary schooling, they're able to be successful in that environment, compete academically. If it's, you know, going into the workforce, they're able to become gainfully employed. If it's going into the military, they're able to pass the entrance exam. They're able to compete with students from all districts. And so we recognize that as an area of need, right? As a district, it's not just Coatesville though. It's across the entire nation. This is a crisis. We are trying to move forward and address it. Like, we're acknowledging it's an issue here and we want to fix it. And the way that we're going to fix it is by following the research that has existed for decades, right? Like, this isn't new. The science of reading is not new. It's just people are finally recognizing the need to follow the research that has existed for a really long time that tells us exactly how students, how we learn how to read. Right? There's an extensive body of research that tells us how students learn how to read, and we need to follow that. And that's really what this is about. And, you know, going back to what Mr. Pelayo presented at the beginning of the presentation, we now have House Bill 2045. It has bipartisan support. It passed with 36 yays, 0 nays. That's telling right there, right? Other states have passed similar legislation and have had success, right? And so, you know, if we move forward with this program adoption, we continue on the path that we are with professional development through the Letters series, we're going to be ahead of the curve. And I can tell you that I attend on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, I attend meetings with the other curriculum administrators from around the county, and Coatesville is ahead of the curve because of the work that we have had in progress throughout the course of this school year through our 3-year plan. So I can never guarantee that we're going to eliminate the issue, but what we're going to do is move forward so that we can fix it to the degree that's possible.
So I have a...
You do understand the existing conditions and the cause of the existing conditions in an area like Coatesville, right? Before you come in here.
I'm from Coatesville.
Okay, then you understand the existing conditions.
I absolutely
And your
do.
program will address the cause of the existing conditions. Like I said, diversity is one of the biggest problems with some of the foreign students that come in here, can't even speak English, and the ones that can, and when we get them, because they can't comprehend, they're put in special education, and that's a disservice. And even some of the other kids that we have in some of the other neighborhoods. And I bet you if you canvass some of our teachers in here, they'll tell you, we got 7th grade kids reading on a 4th grade level. And that's not uncommon.
It's not, and it's not acceptable.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I just had a quick question. So you were saying that obviously the goal is that everybody who graduates is reading proficiently at their level on a, I guess, more measurable scale. Do you guys have, I guess, timelines or expectations of we should be
we should have 50% of our students at this level by this time after adopting this. We should have 75% at this level after this many years after adopting this, and so on and so forth. Are there benchmarks for us to work towards after so many months?
I think that we can certainly establish goals or targets that we want to try to hit. I think that we also need to understand that, obviously there were deficiencies in our core program prior to the pandemic, but now we're also dealing with an issue that's been compacted by, the situation that we've been in with virtual learning, blended learning, even currently now returning to in-person learning, we still have students that are not consistently attending school, right? So there's a lot of factors that are going to impact the success of this, but regardless, we're going to make gains. And that's evident even in the data that we have just from a short period of time in our pilot classrooms. Like both pilots, we're making a recommendation to adopt Open Court and Wit and Wisdom, but both pilot programs outperformed our current core program. That alone says a lot. And many of our pilot classrooms started at a disadvantage because they actually had more students that started out in the well below benchmark range. So you'll see that when you go in to look at the data and do the analysis. I can't guarantee that in 5 years, 90% of our kids will be proficient, right? I can't do that. That would be unethical for me to make those types of promises to you. But what I can promise to you is that we are going to make gains. And adopting and moving forward with a program that aligns to the reading research, that's evidence-based, that's tried and true, right? And we went through a process this year of even piloting that was never done before in this district, right? Like the way that we approach this entire pilot and we vetted these resources and we evaluated the tools, like the entire approach that we have taken was to ensure that we were making the best decision for our district and for our students.
Sure, I understand that, and I agree with that. I'm just from a different or additional perspective. It is, like you said, it is a huge cost to undertake, and then to consistently continue to run every year over year, it's going to continue to cost money. So looking at that from that point of view, for the board to have the whole picture, I do think it's critical to have benchmarks and measurables and goals, and then if we're not attaining those goals, then what?
I want you to understand too, though, that if we were to maintain our current core program, there will be costs associated with maintaining that program, and we will have to. They are in the process right now because the individual that, developed units of study has recognized the deficiencies in the program. They're actually rewriting the program, and we would have to pay to get those updated components, if that makes sense.
And with that program, I would say the same thing. We need to have measurable goals, and then remediation if we don't hit those measurables. Why aren't we? Is it the program? Is it something else? That's the only reason I was asking.
No, I get that. I'm not comfortable guaranteeing that we're going to hit certain targets. Should we have goals that we're aiming for? Absolutely. I think that's where accountability comes in and oversight, right? But I think that there needs to be an understanding that we're talking about children.
I just want to piggyback on what Cassandra's saying, as she says it so passionately. I think this is a big cost to the district, and we realize that. But I also think that we have not done our due diligence in providing our young learners with a foundation in reading. The program that we've had for the past couple of years obviously is not meeting the needs of our students, not building those foundational skills, and not providing them with the necessary skills to move forward into fluency and comprehension. I think this is a tough decision for any board to have to make when it's got such a cost to it. But what's the cost to our children if we don't do this? We've had many concerns from our teaching staff over the past couple of years about the program that we're using. We recognize that, and one of the reasons we brought in our benchmark assessments was to define what areas we need to focus on. Just the implementation, as Cassandra said, of these pilot programs proves that these programs that we want to bring in are much stronger than what we currently have. There's going to be a continued cost moving forward if we keep the current program. That's for sure. There's going to be changes to that program because there are deficiencies that need to be addressed. But the research clearly states, and the fact that we're going to be mandated because of Bill 2045 to move in this direction is something that is necessary and should be strongly considered by the school board. The teachers have done an excellent job this school year with the piloting of the program, the conversations that they've had about the needs for our students and being able to identify how successful their children have been based off of these pilot programs is something that needs to strongly be taken into consideration. We did not just pick 2 programs and pull them from the air. We did our research before we even decided what we were going to pilot. And I think in the best interest of our children, there needs to be change. If I'm not mistaken, Ms. Ritter stood up here in the beginning of the meeting and said there needs to be change. But one of the things we need to change is our approach to reading and what we're providing our kids. Reading is not just during the ELA block. It takes place throughout the entire school day. Our students that leave for TCHS need to have the proper reading abilities to be successful in the programs that they're attending there. We are not here to force the hand of anyone on the board, but we are giving you the facts. And the facts are we have not done what is necessary to make our students successful readers. That's a fact, and there needs to be change.
Agreed. So you mentioned teachers that have had positive feedback and things like that. I know we have a small swath of teachers with us tonight. Have any of the teachers here seen all of the programs and can speak to their experience?
Share your experience with the pilot.
Come on, Ritter. That's quite fine. I'm going to take a picture of this and put this on the Twitter.
That never happened again. I have had the luxury, actually, of seeing all 3 programs working because I have students that are in the regular ed class and then they come to me for assistance and extension in that class. And units of study, it is too easy for our gifted, and it's way too abstract for our special education students. It just didn't have enough. You know, you can't, it's like telling your 12-year-old, yeah, you have free reign of the house, go ahead. They couldn't do that. So Amplify was good. Amplify, it had a great structure to it, but the kids were on the computer the whole time. And some of our kids, especially kids that are special needs, do not do well with that all the time. Because you're on the computer and then something pops up and then you do a TikTok in the middle of what you're supposed to be reading. I did get in a couple TikToks, I'll just say it right now. Anyway, but it truly did not, that piece of it, and then that was a concern that our committee had, that our teachers had. I was invited to the committee even though I didn't pilot, just probably because I had all the kids who did it. And the concern was if we brought Amplify, we'd have to incur all the costs of maintaining computers all the time because you can't do the program without it. It just wasn't substantiated. So Wit and Wisdom, most of, I won't say most, half the kids out of them had Wit and Wisdom. And these kids who could not put a sentence together are now coming into my room and they're able to put a paragraph together. And I don't mean, like when I'm telling you a sentence, I have kids that come in and say, we saw dog. And I'm like, when did Tarzan come to Coatesville? Like, are you kidding me right now? And dog is spelled like D-O-U-G-G. They are coming in and they're able to take a complete thought and they're able to put it into a writing like what, you know, let me just give you an example. Like if you're talking about the song Let It Go from Frozen, they're able to tell you that that means more than just the words let it go, that they can actually write that this song means that you can't hold on to everything in the past. And I'm looking at some of these kids saying, and I just saw you eat a bug. Like, really? But in reality, that's, you know, when you see kids who in the beginning of the school year couldn't do that and now are able to do that, this is what we need to do. And I am not one, I mean, I just stood here tonight and just said, you know, we're a financially distressed district, what are we doing? We gotta put our money here because this is gonna make the difference in the academics for our kids. And I've been here 22 years. I think this is the first time I've ever, I'm 100% behind the ELA, 100%. And they all know, I mean, look, they're like, that's not even Audrey, right? But it is. I promise. There you go.
All right, I just want to make you guys aware of some additional costs, that weren't factored into the quote. Open Court does offer English language development kits that would support our English language learners in terms of language acquisition. Okay, so becoming proficient in our English language, acquiring the vocabulary needed to really be successful in the classroom and engage in academic learning. So we would be purchasing those. The cost would be around $2,000 additionally, and then we would need to train our ESL teachers in implementing that specific component of the program. But it ties right into the core instruction. It supports that, and it would give them an additional resource that they can utilize to support, the development of those language skills. Open Court does have decodable libraries. As we move toward the science, we're going to need to, move away from the use of leveled readers in our primary grades and move in the direction of using decodable readers as that bridge to authentic literature and text. We need audio supports for wit and wisdom, core texts. At this point, we mentioned kind of where our students are currently. We need to ensure that the curriculum is accessible to all students. And so ensuring that our students have access to audio text or text available to them via audio in both English and Spanish so that all students can access is going to be critical. And then I talked about the implementation of wit and wisdom in 8th grade, so doing a small scale pilot next school year to see how we might be able to ensure consistency in instruction through 6, 7, and 8. Even though 8th grade is on the campus, typically 8th grade is part of that traditional middle school model. All right, I'm going to talk about Lexia Core 5. I know that many of our principals have spoken about, their students and their teachers' experiences with Lexia Core 5. Lexia Core 5 is a supplemental resource, okay? So we're looking to adopt a new core resource, which would be Open Court at elementary and Wit and Wisdom at middle, and Lexia would be a supplemental tool that our students would have access to. Lexia Core 5 is an adaptive, blended learning tool that accelerates the development of literacy skills. Okay. Currently, at the elementary level, we use Core 5, and then we use Power Up in grade 6+. We are currently in the 2nd year of implementation with Power Up in grades 6 and beyond, and we paid for that program with the first round of CARES funding that came out of the pandemic. This year, we chose to pilot Core 5 to see if it was something that we wanted to pursue at the elementary level. Students work on Lexia during their designated MTSS or intervention block when they're not working face-to-face with a teacher or a reading specialist. They can also access the program at home. The program does provide individualized instruction to each student based on a program-specific diagnostic assessment, as well as their progress within the program. The program provides teachers with real-time actionable data to support student learning, and it also prescribes lessons that teachers can use in a one-to-one or small group setting to address skill deficiencies and gaps in learning. So it's not just a tool that students are working on online, but it's giving teachers data and giving them resources so that they can really differentiate and meet the needs of students in their classrooms. So we actually started the Core 5 pilot back at the beginning of October. Since October, as of February 17th, 19% of our students across the K-5 division have moved into in or above grade level materials, okay? So that's significant. So out of 2,140 students that are rostered, 19% of them have moved from below grade level to either in or above. We did survey our teachers to just determine their overall satisfaction with the program, as well as to gain insight into how our students felt about the program. So 70 teachers completed the survey. On a scale of 1 to 10, 81% of them rated their overall satisfaction with the program between 8 and 10. And 76% of teachers reported that their students loved the program. I added in some teacher comments that I pulled from the survey, but generally speaking, our teachers are requesting to continue having access to this tool moving forward. The tool is beneficial. It gives our teachers that additional data, that data in real time, so we're not just waiting for the next benchmark or for our monthly progress monitoring, but we're able to know on a day-to-day basis where our students are progressing, where they're struggling, and where they need additional support and instruction. And then for our students, it gives them access to a tool that they can use not just in the school setting, but also at home. Okay? So based on our pilot, based on the data that we got from the survey, based on our students' progress within the program, we would be making a recommendation to continue with the resource for the next 3 years.
Good evening. I'd like to give you a little bit of information tonight and some background on one of the current activities we're working on in support of mathematics curriculum. We are following in the footsteps of Cassandra and the ELA work that's been going on this year, and so we are in the early stages in mathematics. So one of the first things that we've approached this year is the consideration of a supplemental resource for our mathematics curriculum, and so 2 supplemental tools have been piloted this year. IXL and Imagine Math. We have given surveys to the teachers who are using these tools to understand a little bit about how they feel the tools are working in their classrooms. So we provided the surveys to not only the teachers, but also the administrators to gather insight, including the teacher satisfaction, student engagement, preferred features of the tools, and any technical difficulties that they may have experienced. The survey results reflected a greater overall satisfaction with the tool IXL. So the IXL survey was completed by 41 elementary and secondary teachers. We had targeted K through 12 for this pilot of IXL, and because this was a pilot program, it was completely voluntary. We had accounts built for all the teachers as well as all the students, K through 12. We did provide training for those teachers, but again, this was a voluntary activity for them. So I was pleased to get feedback from these 41 teachers. Some of the things that we addressed here. On a scale from 1 to 10, we found that 83% of our respondents rated their overall satisfaction with the IXL tool between 8 and 10. So the scale was 1 to 10, and we found that it was very heavily weighed in the 8 to 10 range. 75% of students ranked student satisfaction at 70% or above. So again, we asked them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel your students enjoy using this tool? And we found that the results leaned heavily towards the 7 to 10 range. We had some specific teacher comments that we felt were positive. There were many comments that were given, but I've just shared a few here. Some of the things that that teachers like was that they have that immediate diagnostic action plan, and that helps them to know how they can address specific student needs. They also feel that that motivates the students. The diagnostic plan actually shows student strengths or needs across the 5 mathematics strands. Other things that we have here is the live teaching. So the IXL tool has a button that a teacher can select that will in the moment show the classroom in front of them, showing what their students are working on and how successful they are in the moment. So it can call out trouble spots for students, it can show the things that students are doing well, and it just shows the teacher at a glance exactly what types of problems students are working on. This is helpful too because students can be working on a range of problems depending on their level. Here's just a few pieces of information that give the background of what IXL does for us. It's a personalized learning platform, and again, it supports students in kindergarten through grade 12. It combines curriculum, diagnostics, individual guidance, meaning an individual plan for each student, as well as real-time analytics. Again, what's really helpful to teachers and support students is the ability to differentiate. So teachers can assign individual skills, skill plans, and they can have these plans and skills aligned to their textbooks, to the standards, and then also to several exams. We can align them to state tests, including the PSSAs, the Keystones, as well as other tests that students take at the upper levels, such as the SATs, PSATs, and ACTs. Again, it gives the teachers real-time, actionable data to help support the student learning in their classrooms. Does anyone have any questions about IXL?
So is IXL like Lexia in that it can be used out of the classroom as well as in the classroom?
Yes, absolutely. It's an online tool. We do have some teachers that use that for homework purposes. They would assign some activities for students to work on at home. There are also some parent resources that can be provided to help parents understand a little bit about what their students are doing. And it gives the students the ability to work on current topics in their class or even to extend to a higher level.
Can you go back one slide, pretty please? I was impressed that that also, I didn't realize, that it was supportive of algebra and the Keystone exams. That's a pretty good thing.
Yes.
And PSAT, SAT, and ACT.
That's
so
right.
It's a good tool for the kids to build their skills.
And I don't think I have it on there, but it's also aligned to MAP, which is the
Okay.
testing that we're giving, you know, on the 3 benchmarks. So yeah,
Great.
the alignment is strong, and it's very easy for the teacher to select a study skill to align for a student.
And some point in time, we're going to see some data out of that?
Yes.
You're collecting data,
Yes,
I'm
and because
assuming. And
right.
at some point in time, you're going to share some data with us on what you're seeing?
Absolutely, yes. And we've had, so because it was voluntary to start,
Sure.
and as teachers were kind of learning as they've gone through the process, in recent months, we really encourage teachers to experiment with the diagnostic.
Okay.
And so what happens is, if we were to adopt and use this tool in the future, we would ask teachers to give the diagnostic at the beginning of the school year. Then from there, it just requires 10 to 15 questions per week in what they call the diagnostic arena, like a revisiting. They can also then be working on other skills as assigned by their teacher or recommended. But over the course of the year, the diagnostic pinpoints exactly where a student's skills are.
Kind of like
so
MAP.
if you look at, it would say the geometry,
Yep.
measurement, data analysis, probability, algebra, and numerical operations, a score would be given for each of those strands for each student.
I can
and
see
this-
some teachers getting excited about that data.
Yeah, I think the teachers who have used it so far have
Right.
been really pleased.
Mhm.
There's so many parts to it that, you know, the training is very valuable. It has extensive videos and ways, you know, PD that's already built in that a teacher can do on their own, but we also would provide PD for the teachers as we did this year.
As we should. Thank you. Wow.
Are there any other questions from my colleagues? Mr. Pillai, was there anything else? I gotta wait 5 minutes.
Just so you know, we are going to put this on the next agenda for approval.
Thank you.
Our next meeting.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Moving on to agenda item 9A, adoption of consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the consent agenda items. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
It's important to note committee meeting action items considered routine will be enacted under one motion unless removed for separate action upon board request. The purpose of the consolidated motion is to expedite governing board action on all consent items, which are not held for discussion. Items that have been held for discussion by the governing board will be enacted upon at the time the item is discussed. So to my colleagues for this evening, a couple agenda items I'd like to pull. I'll draw your attention to Finance Committee, Letter 10A, Financial Statements. Letter 10J, Suspension Resolution. And Letter 10K, Human Resources Report. And we'll shift over to the Education Committee, Letter 11D, 11F, as in Frank, 11G, 11H, and 11I. And all of those are proposed adjudications to be pulled from consent agenda. Are there any other items that my colleagues would wish to have pulled from consent agenda not listed prior? Seeing none, Madam Secretary will call for a vote.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Arvell Brown, Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
She's on, but you can't hear her. Oh, Zoom went away.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
try again, Mary Ann Harris,
Things gone crazy.
Ms. Harris, can you hear us?
Oh, there she is. Technical unhappiness.
She wasn't.
Ms. Harris, can you hear us?
She looks like she's trying to speak. She type it in the chat. She's not muted.
All right, we'll go ahead and continue on with business and move on to the agenda items that have been pulled from consent agenda.
Okay, well,
First-
that motion's approved.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to 10A, financial statements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements, bills, payables list as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
I can hear her. She said yes.
say yes, okay, thank you.
It's just
Arvell Brown, Becky Harlan,
Abstain.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Abstain.
Amelia Mills,
yes.
motion approved.
Thank you. Moving on to 10J, suspension resolution. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the suspension resolution as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Mary Ann Harris,
I think her mic's working now.
We heard you.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
motion approved.
Oh, my.
Letter 10K, Human Resources Report. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leave of absence, transfers, change of status, and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Not a problem. I can't even imagine. I think she's saying yes.
Okay.
Yes.
thank you. Motion approved.
Thank you. Ms. Mills, as Education Chair, I'll turn it over to you for the remaining items.
Thank you. 11D. Proposed adjudication, student 10012029. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 10012029. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Becky Harlan.
Abstain.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Yes.
Harvell Brown. Motion approved.
F, proposed adjudication student 90003404. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 90003404. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
No.
Holly Charest.
No.
Andrew Finkbonner.
No.
Becky Harlan.
No.
Harvell Brown. Mary Ann Harris.
She says yes.
Motion does not pass.
G, proposed adjudication student 100114886. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 100114886. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Harvell Brown. Andrew Finkbonner.
Yes.
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Becky Harlan.
Yes.
Holly Charest.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Proposed adjudication student 50001088. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 50001088. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Jennifer Schott.
No.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Yes.
Becky Harlan.
Yes.
Holly Charest.
No.
Mary Ann Harris.
She's a yes.
Harvell Brown. Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I, placement waiver agreement, student 100009289. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the placement waiver agreement for student 100009289 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Becky Harlan.
Abstain.
Harvell Brown. Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Holly Charest.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. That concludes our items removed from consent agenda. We'll move on to agenda item number 14, public comment. The board has requested that anyone who wishes to make public comment, please list their name, address, telephone number, and topics on the sheet provided. There's a 3-minute time limit per person. We understand that parents and community members are here to address important issues. We will carefully listen, and we value and appreciate your input. It is our practice to generally not respond to public comments, as this is an official business meeting and not a town hall in which we will be dialoguing with the community. We do not want any member of the public to interpret this as disinterest. As a board, we are very much invested in the welfare of our students and school district and are working for the collective success of the district. For those individuals who had signed up for the first session of public comment that they did not apply to that one and apply to this one, we'll start with you. So we have Amanda Winke. Thank you for your patience. If you talk into it, after a couple seconds, it'll pick it up.
It's been a minute. The reason I'm here is to offer my support and my help. Because as you know, we're having a lot of fighting going on in the schools. And I am a citizen of Coatesville. I was one of the first students to walk through this door when they built it. I'm 72 years old, and I know Coatesville. I know the students, I know the parents, and I think it's time for us to work together collectively. The parents, the students. I do not think that we need law enforcement in our schools. That's my opinion, from experience. I think we need to show more compassion and love. I understand professionals, well, we can't show our emotions, we can't get involved. But at some point you have to get involved. You have to live with these children to understand what they do and why they do what they do. A lot of these kids come into the school, and as you know, with a lot of baggage. And they have a different dialect, period. But that doesn't mean that they're dumb or they're stupid, because they're real smart kids, and they deserve a chance. They're very creative. And a lot of things are going on that you don't even have a clue about. And they don't have the way, the will. They're emotionally stressed without the benefit of intellect. Their minds are absent from these brick walls because they're taught only thing that's going to happen to you is that you're going to prison. See? So they're stifled. That gift that they have, because they have a gift. And I'm here to fight for them. I'm 72, and like the Godfather said, when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. I'm in. I'm in. And when I read that this morning in the papers, because I know them, so I know how traumatized the family is because the mother is in prison. And you don't know all the other ins and outs that's involved in that family. Another thing you have to start working with is what's going on in the family, the nucleus, the bills. As you know, everything is sky high. Water bills, electric. That's my time. But please, judge them not for what they don't know, but what they can learn, because they can. And I'm here. If you need me, all you do is call on me, because I love them all. And color has nothing to do with it. Every child deserves a chance. And that's what I came to. And thank you. And I'm proud.
Ms. Winky, thank you very much. Next up, we have Amanda Petraka. I'm sorry if I pronounced the last name. Oh, doesn't happen very often.
Hi, I'm Amanda. We moved to this district in 2016. Everybody told us to stay away from the district. It's awful, it's this, it's that, crime, blah, blah, blah. We fell in love with the area. We fell in love with the people. We fell in love with the schools. My kid blossomed at Rainbow. My child is Noah Petrarca. Up until a month ago, he attended the intermediate high school. Some things you do need to know about my child. Super smart, National Junior Honor Society kid. He was involved in drama, marching band, color guard. He was in the drum line since 6th grade. He was the only middle schooler in the drum line, marching with the high school kids. Got great kids, got great grades, got his first B last year. Teachers love him, he's a model student. Everybody loves this kid. He came out as trans to us at the end of last year. We left the school note at the beginning of the school year this year. Teachers and administration was super supportive about his gender identity, but kids were not. He had food thrown at him repeatedly at the beginning of the year, had people repeatedly touch his hair on the bus on the way home. People were harassing him in the halls in between classes. He had his butt grabbed by some boy. The guidance counselor ignored it. I emailed administrators who assured me everything would be handled when he called me back, and it wasn't. I emailed him, called him again in mid-September, didn't hear any response. We encouraged my child to retaliate by dumping water on this child's head that kept throwing food at him at lunch. When he finally did, he was the one who got in trouble, was told that if he did it again, he would serve a lunchtime detention. At this point, I reached out to another administrator at the intermediate high school on October 25th about the same issue because nothing had been done. The bullying continued in the lunchroom, in the halls. My child did not feel safe. He was absent numerous times this year. In December, we emailed that same administrator for a hall pass to excuse my child for a few minutes earlier in between each class to avoid the issues that were happening in the hallway. She did so. It helped for in between classes. It was great. On December 15th, a child in my child's STEM class threatened to shoot my child because my child would not help him with a project. This was said in the presence of another classmate. I alerted the school to this issue and did the only thing I thought I could do at that time was demand that my child be removed from that class. That was done immediately, but I was told by an administrator that she would follow up with me with the outcome. I never heard anything more. In January, the stress of attending school in a hostile environment came to a head. She was sick all the time. He didn't want to attend any of his after-school activities that he had previously loved. Beginning of January, we enrolled him in the Cyber Academy. Notified the school, let them know. January 12th, I emailed the school to let them know that Noah would be absent from school that day. The secretary forwarded my email to another administrator, a third one, who responded and told me he would call me, and I never heard anything more. You are letting good kids slip through the cracks. You're letting good kids be traumatized and afraid to come to school, and our only option is to homeschool this kid who himself right now is seeking therapy. You have failed my child.
Thank you, Ms. Petrarca. Walter Parker.
Superintendent. As a parent of a child in the district, I have a serious concern for the safety of the students and the teachers here. It seems as though there is a fight on campus literally every day. I feel really bad for what the teachers and administration have to deal with here on a daily basis. The Coatesville School District was a great district to attend when I was growing up, and unfortunately, I don't know if I can say that anymore. Somehow we have to change that narrative. I know the goal is always to try to save everyone, and I'm all for that, but that is not always realistic. For those who are not adhering to the rules and regulations of the district, they need to be removed as to not continue to negatively impact those who want to learn and get an education. We have to be careful with holding our kids accountable, because if this does not stay in the forefront, we're setting our kids up for failure, and the penitentiary has an open door policy. I know none of us want that. I am born and raised in Coatesville, and my wish would be for all our schools to get back to a place where everyone from this area would never think about going to Collegium or Avon Grove, as well as a place where our teachers feel supported so we're not losing them in droves. I was vice president of the Coatesville Booster Club for our boys basketball team for 3 years, and am involved with many of our males from the district and travel basketball throughout the year. The kids respect me and I have a great relationship with them. I'm here today raising my hand to help wherever I can. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parker. Audrey Ritter? Kathy Elliker? Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Teresa Walker.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Walker, and I am here to encourage you to visit East Fallowfield Elementary School. Please, apologizing for my voice now. It is my hope that upon visiting, you allocate a portion of the current or future ESSERS grant for improvements at the school. I believe that many of the needs could potentially fall under the COVID umbrella. I'm by no means an HVAC professional, electrician, or contractor, very much the opposite, in fact. But I am a parent who notices that the front sidewalk is crumbling, that some of the windows have issues opening, and that the building does not have air conditioning. There have long been rumors of building a new elementary school. I wonder if East Fallowfield was a bit neglected by previous administrations with the thought that it may be closed or replaced. However, a new school seems unlikely given our current financial situation, so it's time to reinvest in what we do have. I am a new parent to East Fallowfield as my oldest is in first grade. Because of COVID, I have had limited time inside of East Fallowfield, but did have the opportunity to help at all of her holiday parties. The students are a joy. They all deserve every opportunity that a school can provide for them, and frankly put, our elementary schools are not equitable, but that can change. Students at East Fallowfield receive an amazing education because of the teachers, the support staff, and the principal. They are what make the school beautiful. I wish the outside matched the inside. Please consider a tour, speak with the staff, perhaps meet with some students, and see the needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Katie Hadzer.
Good evening. When I think about a school district's budget, I see it as a bullseye, with the students being dead center. As tends to sadly be the topic in Coatesville this time of year, budget cuts are being examined. I want to encourage the district, and most importantly you, as our board members, those who make the most critical and important decisions for our district, to stay as far from center of that bullseye as possible. Any cuts that directly affect our students will undeniably hurt their education. And their education is why you're all here. It's why our school district exists. Furloughing teachers directly affects these students. Nothing has a harder or more substantial impact than cutting teachers. Teachers are the next ring around the students, our bullseye, our focus. Yet year after year, furloughing teachers is one of the first things our district always does. And I'm not just referring to this happening during your tenure, but it's been happening historically in Coatesville Area School District for quite some time. But look where it's gotten us. It's gotten us seniors who are currently in science classes where they aren't getting credit because there's no certified teacher. It's gotten us 22 secondary teachers teaching a 6th class to help fill the gap, which causes less availability to monitor common areas such as hallways, bathrooms, cafeterias, and bus platforms. It's gotten us less and less classes even being offered at the secondary level. It's gotten us less teachers applying for employment in our district. And I mean, why would they want to come here? The newest hires are always the first ones on the chopping block. Did you know that we currently have secondary classrooms with no teacher? Some teachers have applied for these positions, but HR has been leaving them unfilled. Why? Because they think they aren't the best applicants. Well, perhaps we aren't getting the best applicants because they see how we have been treating our teachers in the past. The 9 of you can change the history of the reckless cutting of teachers. You can be the ones that draw the line this time and say no more. This isn't happening on our watch. You took this position on our board because you saw that we needed changes to be made. So you could be part of that change. We need you to not cut any more teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hadzer. Debbie Larson. Good, okay. Brooke Persh.
Hi, my name is Brooke Persh, and I am a resident of West Callan. I would like to say that I am taking another look at where my child is going next year, and it's sad. I have heard so many great things about this district, and I have seen great things from Kings Highway where my children attend, but the lack of transparency within the district and the board is where my head starts to spin. The rest of the world has gotten back to normal. Let these kids feel the same, because right now you're showing them they are not, as everyone else is. You keep these masks on and you will continue to get a pushback, not just from us as parents, but from the students as well. Every other district has started to go right to mask optional, but hey, don't mind us. We're just gonna take a few more weeks. It truly shows your true colors yet again. But what do I know? I'm just a simple country folk. But in fact, I have sent over 30 emails recently and have only received 3 emails back this whole year concerning any of my issues with the district. I know a lot of my emails are about masking, and you guys could care less, but it's affecting my child and many others I have come in contact with. But I'm not going to go anywhere if my children attend your schools. In fact, our schools can't figure out a way to help our kids mentally and emotionally happens to scare me, because if my kids keep going to your schools, my kids are going to be involved. But you're making it hard. Before you stated on the agenda you wanted to listen to our comments and concerns. While I've been here emailing you, going to these meetings, what else do I need to get any of your attentions? As a parent, as always, I'm a parent who isn't giving up on my student, even if I'm giving up on you as a board and a district, because I have heard on the streets is turning out to be true, and you can't hide behind it anymore.
Thank you, Ms. Perch. Robin Seagraves.
Am I still last?
Are you last? No,
Am I still last? Oh, thank goodness. I don't want to be the last one here. Okay, so I've been taking notes all night, and first and foremost, I want to start by saying thank you for the people who did respond to me over the weekend. I know there's a lot of concern over the incident that happened. I have students who reached out to me and wanted me to relay how they feel. I promised to keep them anonymous because they're scared. They're scared of retaliation. They're scared of kids hurting them if they say anything publicly. So while I don't have time to read all of their full letters, I'll certainly supply them with you, but I did have just a couple excerpts that I took from this. One is a 11th grade football player. He's sad and angry and terrified. He feels like he hasn't been getting an education. He never skipped school before, but now he wants to. He hates it every day. Teachers have to focus on students who never caused a problem, wearing their masks correctly, rather than teaching. It's impossible to get through an entire class without another student causing a problem or distracting the entire room. Using the bathroom shouldn't be an issue, but you really can't go to the bathroom. Students are allowed to roam the hallways, skip classes, and get unlimited hall passes. Those who follow the rules suffer. I'm sad, I'm depressed, and I'm hopeless, and I'm angry. This is someone at the intermediate high school. I'm kind of upset on how this first year is going here. I just came here. We've had lots of altercations, and overall learning is disturbed. I love Coatesville, but me and many others are getting scared to come to school. These are students we've gotten students back because of the work we did here, the work that you did here, and the work that the previous board did here. The administrators have put programs back in place, but we have to implement these programs in full. We have to hold kids accountable when they're not doing the right things. When kids are roaming halls and filling bathrooms and nothing happens to them day after day after day, it's not fair to the rest of the kids who are here to learn. I'm lucky. I have 2 boys who do what they're supposed to do so far. Did they start going to play basketball when they shouldn't? Yep, because everyone else is doing it. But now their own gym class, they can't play basketball because basketball has been removed from this entire school just because of the actions of a couple kids. That is not fair. They literally sit in gym and do absolutely nothing now. So the only thing they enjoyed was their little break in the day to get to shoot some hoops. School climate, I love that Steve Brazel's here. He's amazing. He's going to make an impact, but we need like 20 of him. And I know my time is up. I have so much more to say, so I'll see you at the next one.
Thank you, Ms. Seagraves. Lori Shannon Bailey.
So, when I couldn't sleep this morning, I was calculating the number of teacher resignations and retirements on the HR reports for 2021, and I could be mistaken, but we had 7 teachers to retire in 2021. We had 1 school psychologist leave. We had 2 guidance counselors leave. And guess how many teachers left? 20. 20 teachers. I don't think we need to be pursuing anything except bringing quality teachers back to this district. When we lose teachers that have been here, who love this school, and who are devoted to our children, you cannot compare them to a teacher that's just graduated from any 4-year institution. It matters that these teachers have tenure here. It matters because they care. It matters because they use their own money to buy supplies. It matters because they love our kids. Please, please do what you can to retain the teachers that you have here, and please do not suspend or please don't do that. The other thing I need you to do is, until you handle discipline, this wonderful program that we heard, it's not going to work. You heard this mom here, her poor child. My goodness. How would you like that to be your child? Discipline was an issue under Dr. Tashner. The teachers were afraid of her. Many of them were crying publicly in meetings. I'm not saying that anybody should put the fear of God in anybody except God himself. And I don't see him up here on this board. But what I do want you to realize is we need to get to the bottom of this disciplinary problem. We shouldn't have 32 adjudications. We shouldn't have any. And if the teachers were empowered, if they were encouraged and really supported, maybe support is the strongest word I should be saying, to control their classrooms, we wouldn't have the problems that we're having in this district. Now, just like Miss Amanda said, I'm not 72 years old, but I'm not too far behind her. We're the community, some of us are here to actually help you. And you know that. So please, board, please do more to support our teachers. And one more thing, to sign a 1-year union contract, I don't know who agreed to that, but that just really should have never happened. A 1-year contract? I'm a former union president, that never happens. So please, I hate to get emotional, but I'm sick and tired of coming to this meeting night out and night in and saying the same things. We've got to do better. We have got to do better. We are Coatesville, and we've gone through a lot. I don't want to have to go to another funeral. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Moving on to agenda item number 15, additional board member reports.
I do have one, and I know it's late, and I know it's been a long night, so I will make it as quick as possible. To expand a little bit on what Mr. Hanna said earlier, and in agreement with what everyone has come up here and said about discipline and needing our arms around what's going on. There is a program that started in a small group in Shreveport, Louisiana, in a district very similar to Coatesville, called Dads on Duty. There was a group of parents, group of dads, community members who recognized the direction that their district was going and did not like it, got tired of feeling helpless and hopeless and powerless. So they organized, they created a calendar, they obtained the required clearances, and they started to monitor the schools. It started with a group of 40. They walk the halls, they monitor the bathrooms, the lunchroom, they build rapport and relationships with students and staff alike, de-escalate situations, keep kids moving along in the hallways to classrooms. Since the inception of Dads on Duty in September, Southwood High School has seen an almost 100% decline in fights, over 30% decline in skipped classes, and a steady decline in absenteeism. The qualitative data also shows an overall increase in student morale throughout the entire school. We are looking to implement a Dads on Duty program here at Coatesville. It's important to note that you do not have to be a dad to be involved. You can be an uncle, you can be a mom, a grandmom, a community member. We recognize that we need help. We're asking the community for that now. If you would like to participate in the program, please reach out to me via email. I can be found on the website. We'll be coordinating with other community members and other organizations to help get everything underway as quickly as possible. If there are any questions, again, reach out to me via email, and I'll do everything I can to get a program off the ground as quickly as possible.
I have something to add on a bit of a different note. Recently, I came across a very charming children's book about a little girl who loved to read and write. She adored words, long words, unusual words. Whenever she found a new word, she looked it up in the dictionary. Words like persnickety, duckling, onomatopoeia. And she wrote all her favorite words in a notebook. This book, Stacy's Extraordinary Words, made me think about the generosity of the Coatesville Rotary Club. For about 15 years, the Rotary Club has gifted to all of our third grade students a personal student dictionary. Several Rotarians handed out the last of the dictionaries this week to third graders at Rainbow. The Rotary Club also hosts cash seniors at several of their spring luncheons. In fact, during their luncheon conversations, our seniors comment that they remembered and treasured their dictionary gift. I want to thank the Rotary Club on behalf of the school board and the community of all that they do for our children. Thank you.
Are there any additional board member reports? Any informational items? See none, I'll ask a motion for adjournment. We'll adjourn the board meeting at